Hey everyone, and welcome back to the DC Films Podcast. This is episode 24. Yeah, 24, I believe. And this episode, it's mostly gonna be a lot of ranting. There's not like a set thing we're gonna be talking about. Obviously, this week was the release of Justice League on digital services, and there's a lot of things that we're gonna be talking about. A lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff and the stuff they added on for Zack. And we're a lot of it was just gonna be spent talking shit about Joss Whedon and WB, honestly. So with that being said, there are the usual group of people here, as well as our newest member of the podcast. So if each of you guys want to go around and introduce yourselves to the listeners.
Hey everyone, I'm Artyom, and you can find me as Greg on Tumblr.
Hi, my name is Al. You can just call me Speed, and I am Aspie Trench Batman on Tumblr.
I'm Story Advocate, I'm Katie, and I'm Story Advocate on Tumblr.
I'm Danielle, and I'm a Social Justice League on Tumblr.
Okay, so before we started recording, I was already getting in pre-rant mode.
We've all been in pre-rant mode for days.
I know. Okay, but before we get into full rant mode, okay, have you guys all had the chance to see the deleted Superman stuff?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Because I want to talk about that first, because that to me, and I said this as much on Tumblr, that sequence was better than the theatrical cut of the movie, hands down.
Yep.
Like, everything from the use of Hans' score to just it feeling like Zack Snyder. Like, that's the biggest thing to me was watching while I was watching that. I'm like I felt giddy the entire, even though we had already kind of seen the first portion of the scene like last week when they released it online. But even then, like, just watching it, it made me feel like I was watching Man of Steel again for the first time. Like that sense of like awe and wonder that I had watching a Zack Snyder film. Like, yeah, it's everything that was missing from the theatrical cut of Justice League, and I'm just like, why would you cut this? This is amazing. Like, you don't have to do any CGI work. It's already done for you. Why are you, like, it was just, like, it was so beautiful. And then from the moment that, you know, you like that scene that was cut from the Comic-Con trailer of Alfred in the glass, and he's like, oh wait, he said you'd come. And when the moment Superman lands and the theme starts playing, and he has that banter with Alfred, that was just so amazing. And it just felt like this is Zack Snyder's DCEU. Like, it doesn't feel like Joss's reshoots. Like, exactly. Yes. It felt like home. And so, it was just amazing. So if you guys want to like share your thoughts on it, because I can talk about it all day. But you guys, I
know. Say, don't get me started. I think everybody's kind of quiet because we're all like, once we get going, we're not gonna stop. So you have to be careful. But no, it was so heartbreaking because you're right. All of us were all like, there he is. That's him. That's the Superman I was here to see. There he is. And it's Zack's stuff. Like, it's so obviously Zack's. The bottom line is watching those 2 minutes and realizing that they cut them out of this film to put in, boob jokes and thirsty and all sorts of ridiculous crap just made me fully acknowledge that they never had any intention of following Zack's vision. They said it, but they didn't mean it, because they truly, either that or they have no idea what Zack's vision truly is, because they took what was the most core element of this entire trilogy and just cut it. And in the end, it's like, it's 2 minutes. Are you telling me that you can't fit in 2 minutes, like, and have it be 2 hours and 1 minute? Like, why is this so hard for you? And yet, even if you wanted it to be exactly under 2 hours, you would go ahead and sacrifice that, like the culmination of his arc over 3 films, just to put in the funny stuff. Right then it was like, okay, they had no intention or understanding of what Zack was doing, and it just broke my heart even more. So that's all I got.
I think the thing about this film for me was that I just felt like it really wasn't Zack's film. Sorry, I don't know everyone's names on here. I apologize for that. But for me, one thing that I always felt attached when it comes to Zack Snyder's films is how he does his cinematography and how he makes it feel like a moving painting coming to life. That's one of the reasons why I loved every single movie that Zack Snyder has put out, because they all felt like works of art. But here in Justice League, it just doesn't feel like a work of art. It feels like a very cheap rendition of what Zack, has been known for. And it annoys me because it feels like WB and Joss Whedon, they're just spitting on his talent. Because Zack has so much great talent, not only in cinematography, but in the way he cultivates his stories. So to see Justice League and see how it became, it really just upsets me. And I think one of the things that upsets me the most about Justice League, besides pretty much everything else, was there was this one scene, like this one particular scene that just rubbed me the wrong way so badly. And it was the graveyard scene where it had I think Barry and Victor trying to dig up Superman's grave, and they're just joking, they're just making jokes, they're just laughing, having a good time, while they're desecrating a dead person's grave. They're desecrating this person's grave. And then what really annoyed me was the nerve where Barry reached up to try and dap Victor, and Victor says no, and then he says, "Oh, okay, racial tension." It's like, where did that come from? Racial tension? Like, I don't know why that was put in there. Was it supposed to poke fun at how white people and black people don't usually do the dap thing? It annoyed me as a black person myself, and I could not take the rest of the movie seriously after that scene.
I was literally in the theater during that scene, and I yelled out loud because I started just yelling at the screen. Second time through, I was like, "That's it. I'm just gonna start interacting with this movie because I'm fucking done." And I literally yelled, "Are these supposed to be heroes or what? There's nothing heroic about this scene. I don't know what they're trying to build here, but it's not a fucking Justice League because that doesn't. I mean, are we dealing with DC role models or not? Because you can't have two characters dig up a grave and then have a weird racist moment and then be like, "Oh yeah, these guys are the emblems of things to look up to." And I'm looking at it and like, you just want to drag these people through the dirt. And a lot of it is, a lot of what I take it to it is just this baggage that I have with Whedon in the first place, because I think he's a piece of shit and he hates everything that I love. But he does. In a literal sense, he hates everything that I love, because to me, this scene is him dragging these heroes down to his level and making them as bullshit and as racist and as stupid and as simple as he is. And that's what's so ugly about it, is that it just makes me feel like the entire film was like an exercise in Whedon proving once again that there's no one better than him, and that, all men are shitty, and that everything, has to be the way it is because the patriarchy, and it's his giant freaking excuse for his bad behavior. And that is crazy bullshit. That's not what this is about. The Justice League movie was supposed to be, inspiring on that level. From a feminist perspective, it was supposed to elevate us. It was supposed to make you look at these, mostly men, and look at this group of men and say, this is what we want the future of masculinity to look like. And it's nothing like what we wanted. It's nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah, it really spoke to me. Yeah. I'm sorry. Do you want to go ahead?
Oh, no, I just had to say one more thing. It's funny how people said that, Justice League was supposed to be that, and it wasn't. And it's funny because I remember way back when Man of Steel and Batman v Superman were coming out, was that there were some people who were saying, "Oh, it's just toxic masculinity from Batman and Superman." But it's like, now we look at Justice League, and it's like, oh, you don't know toxic masculinity.
You're so right. You are so right. sometimes I wonder what films these guys are watching because they just come out with such a different perspective, and it's like, really? Are you sure that's not your little tunnel vision blinders you're wearing there? But
when you
anyway,
get right down to it, they don't know what they're talking about because they don't know what toxic masculinity is in the first place. They're just saying it. They just say this shit. They don't. It's a buzzword to them. They're just like, well, this is a dude that I don't like. It must be toxic masculinity. And it's like, no, actually, toxic masculinity is a specific number of things. And if you read a freaking book, then you would know. But, like, that's the thing, is that people just are like, well, you know, this makes it sound bad, so I'm just going to use some sort of, like, random buzzword. And it doesn't mean anything to them. And half of what pisses me off is that shit doesn't mean anything to them. None of that has any weight or value to them. And that's, like, don't use it then. Like, opt out of that language. Because that language matters to some people.
Yeah. You know, it ties right into, I don't know, especially, I agree totally, Speed, with the graveyard scene and several other scenes that I've mentioned before, and my grousing and stuff like that. It really speaks to, Joss seems to have a very one-level, superficial, and I'm going to say it, stereotypical view of characters. And so he doesn't seem to have any understanding of actual depth or complexity when it comes to characters. It's, okay, this woman is a farmer's wife and, you know, lives in Kansas. She's got to sound like a hick. All right, this dude's black, you know, so we're going to make sure to bring in some racial tension because what else do we have? Yeah. And then this guy over here is the young and experienced one, so we're just going to make him a dorky puppy who has no understanding of how to be sensitive around other people, which is really, I feel, kind of a slap in the face to the Barry I know and love. You know, he's got a dad in jail, man. You know, he's dealt his whole life with people thinking his father is a wife killer. You know, I mean, I would think he'd have a little bit of idea of how to be sensitive towards others, and so everything about it just seems so superficial. He really doesn't have any depth at all, and it just it creeps me out, and I agree, and it just unfortunately goes with the rest of everybody else looking at something on a surface level and making a judgment and then being certain that their judgment is true without ever making any further investigation to back it up or to make sure that they're, you know, that their judgment.
That was
correct.
The other thing, is that the untouched Barry scenes are so complex and tense and beautiful. There's that one point when he's talking to his dad, and his dad starts suggesting that he like move on and that he let things go and that he not visit him anymore. And he has that moment where he's like, it's like this tender angriness.
Yes,
that he brings into the room.
I love that, because he goes, please don't ever say that to me again. You can tell he's really ticked about it, but he also isn't going to scream at his dad, who's like in jail, wrongly accused, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was such a fantastic moment. Like, I physically shook. I remember literally just my hands shaking a little bit and being like, that feeling, I know that feeling. That feeling is so familiar. It's exactly like, it's this great, just sort of like emotional, you know, tender frustration with a person. Like, just like that's so hurtful, it makes me angry. And I loved that. I loved that moment. And like, Barry is robbed of that kind of intensity for the rest of the film. Like, it never comes back into the room, and that sucks because Ezra is so much more capable of so much more.
Oh, he is. And I feel that there's way more in Zach's version that we ever got to see, and the same for Victor. Like, I just feel the characters were robbed so much of what they had already done. A complex and beautiful characterization they'd already done was just kind of erased and just plastered with this superficial, stereotypical, you know, layer, and it irks me so much. This is why I spend my time grousing and wanting the Snyder Cut. It's not just because I'm an entitled fan, it's because I really feel like there's been a serious injustice done to Zach as an artist, to like any director shouldn't be treated like that, to the actors who put their heart and soul into the first version, only be told it's not good enough. It's not good enough. What? So that we can back it up like 80 years and go ahead and slap funny on it. It just, everything about this enrages me. So it was awesome when they were like, here, have 2 minutes and that should make you happy. And all it did was just dump this huge gasoline jug on the fire. And we're all like, what? So, yeah.
Well, I think especially with the Alfred scene, I think that the Superman reveal to me was more Man of Steel, and that's like extra candy for me. Like I was just like, yes, like as much Man of Steel content as you can pump into this franchise,
yes.
I want it all. But the Alfred scene is something special because I think that what it does is it really shows the actual tone and feel and universe of what a Zack Snyder Justice League would have looked and felt like. Yes. And I think seeing that was extra angering for all of the fans because it was so beautiful, because it was such a great vision, because you're looking at it, you're like, I mean, like when you look over the precipice at this challenge that's at his feet, this idea that he might make a Justice League movie. Like, so far, he's made movies that are very close up, very, very, like, you know, straight characterization, just all very intimate character stuff, and relationships and things. And Justice League begs more. Justice League asks you to move the camera a little further out. And we all understood that, and I think that that's the only thing that I was nervous about. And this scene demonstrates that Snyder not only has the capacity to do that, but can do it in a way that makes you want to cry, in a way that was just so beautiful, like an actual, like what I always wished that the DCEU would do with the Justice League in terms of just the way these characters interact, the way that we handle Superman in a way that sort of balances that sort of lightness with the heaviness of you know, the heaviness of his heart, not to be like, you know, intense and poetic about it, but like that balance, he really found that balance. He really located it. And seeing what he wanted for that universe just, I think, made it so much more bitter because it could have been so much more. It could have been so amazing. And that's the thing, is I think just everyone feels like robbed of that. It's not that we feel entitled to a better Justice League movie, though I think that we are. I do think at a basic level we're entitled to something better than what they gave us. But I think that we saw what could have been, and it is heartbreaking just to look at that vision and say, like, that's what I wanted. That's everything I wanted right there.
It's
you could have released this 2 minutes and I would have been ecstatic and bought 5 tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, me too.
But you want to? Oh, I don't know who goes.
I guess somebody pick.
I think the thing about it was, for me, Superman wasn't really my most favorite character for like such a long time. I think the first time I ever became a fan of Superman back when I was a kid was during the George Reeves TV shows, because back then I didn't have cable, and that show would usually come on, and I think that's where my love for Superman came. So it kind of went on until about Justice League Unlimited came, where I felt like Superman just wasn't really all there. And it was there that I realized that most people kind of depicted Superman as this sort of macho, super strong, never takes anything from anybody, sort of, I guess, dork, so to say. But not the lovable dork, but more like the annoying dork who just keeps trying to push his truth, justice, and American way in people's faces. And I just sort of fell out of love with Superman because of that. But it wasn't until I saw Batman v Superman that I realized, oh crap, Superman's actually got some character to him. Like, oh man, Superman's actually got some real emotional baggage that he's going through. He's got some real demons that he's trying to work out, and he's trying to be accepted by everyone. And I can realize that, and I could relate to that. And that was the first time where I really felt like I was seeing Superman for who he really was. So when I saw Justice League, it felt like it was just taking me back to all the things I didn't like about Superman, all the, you know, one-liners, all the things, how he acted. I felt like we didn't reach the point of him acting like that yet, because we didn't go through, you know, I mean, this dude just came back from the dead. Like, I don't know how you can make jokes and say, I take it back, I want to die, right after coming back to life.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
like
you.
it's like that makes no sense character-wise. Like no one would say, you know what? I'll take it back. I'll take death over this. And it's like, dude, you just came back from the dead. Have a little bit of faith in yourself. And thus bringing me back to that scene, those 2 minutes of pure Zack Snyder Superman goodness that we got. And I was immediately immersed in this Superman. That was the Superman I came to see in theaters. How he reacted to being called Master Kent, that whole lovable, modest feeling where it's like, I've never been called Masters before. This feels so foreign to me. And I like it. And that's the Superman I wanted to see. And I wanted to see that Superman help the Justice League, you know, his whole modest personality. I wanted that Superman to come back, and I feel like he never left his coffin. That's the Superman that never left his coffin. Either the whole mother box brought back a half of him, not the whole thing. And that's just how I felt about that Superman.
Totally
You know,
how I felt.
I just can't believe that throughout this entire time, Warner Brothers were just lying to us, straight to our faces. They were saying things that made us believe that we're going to get Justice League that we deserve. Like, we even protected them, and the reason behind picking Joss Whedon, we were so on their side, and we trusted them that they will not do this, what they actually did in the end.
Well,
Reshoots were minimal. They were saying that we stay true to Zack Snyder's vision. It's all right. It's all right, guys. We are going to get Justice League by Zack Snyder, and they just simply did not deliver that, like at all. After lying to us, and it's also hurtful to me to hear Hans Zimmer theme of Superman after they fired John Taylor, who helped Hans Zimmer to compose music for Batman v Superman and even Man of Steel, but he was not in the credits, as I recall. And they fired Junkie XL. They refused the music of Hans Zimmer, and they replaced everything with Danny Elfman. And now they have to audacity, almost like laugh at us with these 2 minutes of footage. Like, this is what you could have had, but you're not getting this. Like,
we got it in front of you. You almost got it.
Oh my gosh, now I want to hurt them more.
But the thing about it is that I kind of had a feeling that WB was lying to us, because I have a long history of WB and all the stuff they pulled. Because I think even back when with its video game Arkham Knight, with all the stuff that they said they fixed and then it never got fixed and all that stuff, like, I'm used to WB's sort of bullshit business practices. So I kind of had a feeling that, you know, after Zack left and after Joss Whedon was brought in, I knew from the very get-go that WB was lying to us. We're not going to get the Zack Snyder movie. They're just saying that to turn a profit.
You know, I think I wish I had gone your way instead. I didn't quite have the history, and I was a little bit blind and stupid and trusting. And, you know, they said it, and I believed it. And so, yeah, I think it would have been I don't know, I envy your way simply because I think it allows you to hit a better place with it before it ever came out, instead of sitting in the theater going, we've been betrayed, you know. So yeah, I think that's probably good.
And that's like for me, like, at the time, the only reason why I believed them was because this all happened in the wake of a tragedy in Zack's life. Like, he lost his daughter, and we just assumed Warner Brothers was gonna be fucking decent people and be like, oh, hey, well, you know, this guy just lost his daughter, we're still gonna respect his vision. Fucking no, they did not. Like, they, like, literally...
there's a sense of, like, how low could they possibly stoop, and we had no idea.
They just kept lowering the bar. They kept digging to lower the bar. It was like, how could you possibly do that by accident, you guys? I don't know. Yeah.
And the thing about it was that if they really wanted to respect Zack Snyder's vision and respect him and his daughter, they should have just, you know, what I really felt they should have done was that they should have rescheduled the film so that it would come out later on. Because at least by then they would have more time to be able to find, either for Zack Snyder to, you know, find a sort of common place where he could probably be able to come back without having to go through all the grief that WB and the people who keep saying, oh, Zack Snyder's gone, the DCEU is saved. Like, they could have, like, postponed the film for a bit until either Zack Snyder was ready to come back or they had found someone who Zack Snyder would handpick to carry on the rest of the filming. But instead, they just rushed it out, just picked Joss Whedon out of nowhere, and then just let him do it.
I just think that never would have realistically happened because we're seeing so many signs, and I think that it's becoming pretty clear that they weren't on board from the first jump with this movie, and that from day one they were asking for edits that made things lighter. They were asking for edits that made things not Snyder, and I think that I think honestly, having, you know, not experienced a loss the size of Zack's, but experienced a pretty significant loss in my life, this could have been something that was a safe harbor for him. This could have been something that was very positive for him. It could have been a safe place for him to deal with whatever he has to deal with in terms of grief. If there hadn't been that shitty studio pressure to make this movie less like Batman vs. Superman. And I think that was there from day one, and that Zack fought as hard as he could to preserve that vision, and that at a certain point he just said, fuck it, I don't have the energy anymore. And he can't be blamed for that, because, like, and that's the thing, is they took advantage of a situation where otherwise maybe he would have, you know, dug in and fought for it and really got his vision through and done, you know, the same thing with Batman vs. Superman, which was create an amazing cut that Warner Brothers would then slice up into bullshit, and then, you know, release an extended edition, and everything would have been fine, but, you know, life happened. And it sabotaged everything, and I'm sure it made it much harder to see the reason to be doing this, to see the reason to keep fighting and to keep that energy up.
I felt
after a while you just get tired.
Sorry. When I heard everything that happened, you know, with I think it was that first moment where I heard Zack Snyder drops out of Justice League because of daughter's suicide. That was one of the most saddest things I had ever heard, because that was during the time where I was just starting to really get into Zack Snyder stuff, and I was really starting to really love what he was doing and noticed such a passion to it. To which, when I heard this, it was such a sad, and just, it really made me feel so emotional to have to go through that. And one of the first things that I saw, not only from, the first thing I saw from people was like, yes, Zack Snyder is gone from the DCEU. The DCEU is saved. And it's like, dude, he just lost a daughter. And then one of the most disgusting things I saw was someone who was saying, well, maybe his daughter killed herself because his movies were bad. And that made me so angry to hear that, because, dude, this dude just lost a daughter, and you're gonna use this as fuel to hate on a movie. Like, that rubbed me the wrong way. That just that made me lose a little bit of faith in humanity. You know?
But that whole situation, like, really, really irked me. For people who, like, literally jumped at the opportunity to be like, oh, thank God. Like, without even, like, okay, seriously, like, even if you don't like Zack Snyder's films, whatever, just be a fucking decent human being and respect the guy who just lost someone. And that's why it was so frustrating when everyone was like, oh, I hated his movies, but I feel sorry for the guy. Okay, if you feel sorry for him, don't mention the fact that you hate his movies. It's just, it's so, like, it's not even like he's a shitty person. If he was a shitty person, like, okay, whatever, but he's like a decent human being who just lost his daughter. And people were just like, well, he made shitty movies, but he lost someone, so okay, I guess.
Like, you know, I hate Joss, but if he lost a daughter, I wouldn't be like, well, his movies suck and he's talentless, but sorry he lost. I'd be like, dude, I'm sorry that happened to you. You know, because that's not something I wish, even on people that I hate. It's not cool.
Like, if Michael Bay lost someone to him that was good, I wouldn't say, well, his movies were crap, but hey, I feel sorry for you. no, I feel very sentimental about it because, you know, we lose people all the time these days, and I don't want to just, you know, bring people down just because they made one bad film. Like, if Michael Bay lost someone important, I would feel bad for him. It's just, you know, just human decency.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, seriously, that the moment I read the headline of Zack Snyder drops out of Justice League, I was already like, oh no, like what happened? Yeah. And then as I'm reading, I remember I was at my parents' house doing laundry that day, and I had to go into work after. And I remember I was so out of it that day after reading what happened to Autumn. I felt like I experienced a loss. Like I mean, especially coming from someone who, I mean, I've lost my own mom, so like all of that like hit me. I'm like, oh my god, like I feel exactly what Zach's feeling, and that is literally the worst feeling in the world, to lose someone so close to you, to lose family.
Yeah,
and that entire
and you
day,
see him in the behind. Too, and it's like he's so happy. He's just so excited to be there, to be a part of this Justice League experience.
Yep.
And then you remember, you know, what he went through, and it's such a tragic feeling to have to see him be so happy, but then he went through that.
I mean, it's tragic in the first place. I just think that everything around it just impacted it so much. Like, for him to have to put out this statement about something that he obviously wanted to keep private, that he said he wanted to keep private, and to have him literally have to mention the press. Like, for that to come up in this conversation, for him to say, like, you know, I mean, like, I've got the quote sitting right here, and he says, "Here's the thing, I never planned to make this public. I thought it would just be in the family, a private matter, our private sorrow that we would deal with. When it became obvious that I needed to take a break, I knew there would be narratives created on the internet. They'll do what they do. The truth is, I'm past caring about that kind of thing right now." And, like, for him to have to address that there are narratives created on the internet, and that knowing that people are going to say terrible shit about him, and knowing that Warner Brothers isn't going to back him up on this, like, that kind of toxic environment is exactly, like, it makes me feel like they got the film they deserved. And, you know, it's tragic on all levels, but, I mean, a certain part of me really likes the justice of Justice League being as terrible as it is, because it's like, this is karma. Like, this is, you can't treat someone like this. You can't treat an entire cast of people like this and then expect good things to come of it. Like, you know, I mean, like, we live in a you know, society where we profit off the suffering of others, but there's a line in which, like, you know, the profiting starts to eat away at your own sense of moral, you know.
But I'm glad that Zach had his family, and that was something that I was happy to hear, that Zach just stepped away from everything just to spend more time with his family. You know, he didn't go right back into the whole film directing thing. He just spent some time with his family, and I think that was probably one of the best things that that he could have done. And, you know, he has such a loving wife, and he still has his other kids who were there for him, and, you know, he was able to have a sort of closure to this whole grief that he was going through. And he even, I felt like he came out stronger when he made that that film with the iPhone. Iron, I feel like that is pure Zack Snyder, and that is him with his own rebirth.
Yep.
You want me to...
Oh, hey, Fatma.
Hi guys, I just thought I'd let you finish what you were trying to say. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good. What's the topic that we're talking about? Also, I'm Fatma, so from Gotham. I don't know whether Nick said at the beginning.
It's fine. Yes, we started with talking about the digital release of Justice League and all of that. So now we're just going to talk about just the effect of, like, the announcement of Zack Snyder stepping away from Justice League and the loss of Autumn. So we've just been talking about that. So.
Well, it was bound to come, and they were going to announce it sooner or later. And, I mean...
yeah, it's an awful situation.
I don't have words for it. It's just a crazy time to be alive. Like, why would you do that? The entirety, well, not the entirety, but a lot of the DCEU fans and the DC fans that somewhat enjoyed the movies are really, really angry because you can tell that they made a botched job of the movie, and I would rather watch a horrible Justice League movie but have it cohesive, or at least, you know, from one vision, rather than have it like, do you know, a patchwork of when something's ripped and you just have to like do that. I'd rather just see it ripped and just, I don't know whether I'm making sense.
No, yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
If they felt that the Zack Snyder Justice League was horrible, which I highly doubt and I don't agree, I'd rather have seen one person's work throughout the whole thing, whereas what we got was a bit of Zack Snyder here, a bit of, a lot of Joss Whedon, and then there were some scenes that were clearly meant to be scored by Hans and Junkie, and they were scored by someone completely different. Yeah. The effects were completely changed, and it's just something that you ended up having like a Frankenstein monster. I know the monster isn't called Frankenstein, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you
mean. And then they had the audacity to write, directed by Zack Snyder. Had I known that this movie was not directed by Zack Snyder, and if they were truthful from the get-go, instead of hyping us up and selling us this false dream, then I don't think the reaction would have been as bad. But because they kept selling it off as Zack for months and months, that's what we got. And do you know what the funny thing is? That Hans said, "Oh, I'm retiring. That's it. I'm done." But he says, "I don't want to do superheroes anymore. I want to do other projects." But isn't he working on the X-Men?
Dark Phoenix, yeah.
I brought that up. He just needed a break for a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, but I think that he's lying. I'm just saying that he tried to find an excuse and just made it, because all of the actors are trying to find excuses for the movie. Poor Henry tried to make it sound like it wasn't too bad in the Justice League. Ben Affleck was saying, "Oh, it's interesting to work with two directors, but I'd rather never do it again." He tried to give a positive spin. It's just like everyone involved in this has been stabbed as much as we have.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, like especially with Ben, like,
been really weird.
I feel especially like looking at not even like just looking at Ben in the press, like you get that like Zack was the one who got Ben Affleck to be Batman. Ben Affleck of all people, who was I don't know if when he was announced as Batman, there were so many petitions to get like President Obama to get him off of being Batman. It was so stupid, but like. We got in Batman v Superman, arguably, in my opinion anyway, the best interpretation of Batman in live action we've ever seen, and that was all with Ben and Zack working together. And I feel like Zack was the one who got Ben Affleck excited about this new interpretation of Batman. And you can tell after reshooting all that stuff for Justice League, Ben's like, "This isn't what I signed up for," and I feel like Joss Whedon and WB are the reasons why he doesn't want to do it anymore. He's like, "That's not what I signed up for. I signed up to do this dark, realistic take that's different from the Nolan films, that gives me the chance to spread my wings more as an actor with this character." But Warner Brothers is like, no, make it more like Iron Man, make it more funny. And it's like, no. And that's why, like especially when they brought him in for the reshoots, like obviously at that point he hadn't been working out as much. You could tell that they added some like muscle padding because he wasn't in as good of shape. And also, I mean,
it looks like he's phoning it in so hard.
I know.
He's just
there are some scenes you can tell, like,
have to be, you know?
And that's what there's some scenes that obviously you can tell were shot by Zack, because you can tell that Ben Affleck is actually giving a shit.
Yeah.
But like, and the other scenes, it's just oh my god, like what am I watching? Like with Batman v Superman, the entire time, I couldn't tell you that was Ben Affleck. I'd be like, no, that's Bruce Wayne. That's Batman. In this movie, I'm like, for the most part, it's Ben Affleck acting in a movie that he doesn't care about.
Like, Ben Affleck it was clear that he didn't care. He really wanted it. I felt like in some scenes that he just really wanted to be out there, especially in the one where he's in the plane, and he doesn't actually look like anything in the trailers. I think, was it Artem or someone else who showed the difference between the trailer cut and whatnot. I could literally feel that he really didn't want to be in that scene, and that he just, like you said, he was just there because if he didn't, he would have been sued by Warner Brothers. And it's just like, it's horrible for a place to be.
I feel for him because I think he had some really special experiences with Zach. And I think that really I think he loved the take on it, but I think he also liked working with the director. I think he has great respect for Zach. I think he really, really enjoyed himself on both films. And then to see what happened in the aftermath and to have to come back and do reshoots to see how Zach's vision was just crapped on, and as a director himself, I think that really affected him. And I agree. It's like he doesn't want to hang around for that because it's not the character he wants to play now, and he has no guarantee that any of the work will be respected. And so what's the point? Like what was that? There was a media thing that happened just before Justice League came out, I think in China, and most of the cast was there, and I think that's when Charles Roven, no, he might not have been there, I think it was just the cast, and they were like, oh, here's a surprise, and they gave him a little picture that said, like, we love you, Zach, or something like that. It was something for Zack Snyder support, and they were all like, yay, and they all got a picture, and they all talked about how awesome he was and stuff like that. Ben was really quiet, and somebody who was there for the actual event said that he spent most of his time looking at the picture of Zach and not saying anything. And I think that speaks volumes. Because I think this really kind of shattered his whole, well, I don't want to be here anymore, because he just watched a fellow director who he has huge respect for just get dragged through the mud, and he said, no, I'm out. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him even one bit, even though he's the best Batman I've ever had, It just,
And the thing about that Batman that I actually realized, I think it was, because I watched Justice League the first time in the IMAX theater, which really changes people's perspective on a lot of films. But I think it was a moment where, you know how Batman does that whole intense stare thing at people. He does this intense stare where you literally really feel like Batman's not even human. When he did that in Justice League, I guess in a lot of scenes, it didn't really give me the impression that he was like the true Batman. It just felt like Ben Affleck playing Bruce Wayne dressed in a bat suit as Batman. Whereas in Batman v Superman, if you remember that one stare he did at that one criminal in the warehouse scene, where like the last one right before he takes him out, that was the most intense Batman moment I have ever seen, because you already got Ben's his physique and his whole towering presence, and he's just looming over this guy. And that moment gave me so much goosebumps in the theaters. I was literally shaking when I saw that. But I just didn't get that in Justice League because it felt like... Because Batman didn't feel as intense, because most of the movie he's either joking around or he's getting thrown around by a parademon. And you just don't get that sense of terror that you would usually get from Batman.
Yeah, and that's what
scene that what was it? Oh, I don't know that little thing that he had with Superman.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, that
Oh my god.
Like, that was just, I was watching it and I was like, what is this? I feel so awkward. If they're trying to push this like bromance thing, it's not working.
Oh my god.
Honestly, there's no continuation between what happened in Batman v Superman and how serious he was and how like sad he was that he in a way had a hand in what happened to him in BVS.
I know, just
he was really serious.
Okay, yeah.
Well, that sort of awkward tenderness at the moving truck scene was absolutely more real to their relationship than anything else that happens in the entire movie. It's just like a nice, quiet moment where these two dudes try to size each other up and figure out what each other's personality is. Because as I have to keep reminding every single fucking person on the planet, they don't know each other. They don't know each other. They don't know each other. They're not friends. They don't know each other. They are strangers. They are strangers with an affinity for each other who have some trauma bonding. And that is literally it. You have to build the rest. You cannot have your toys right away. You have to build that shit. And that was the beginning of something gorgeous. And it was really cute and sort of awkward and sweet. And it was exactly what Affleck was always going to bring to the role, which is this, like, you know, I don't know how to not be the cool guy. Like, that kind of, like, feel is going to be great.
Here, have money, you know, like, exactly. I'm trying to make it better for it, but, you know, sorry, I tried to
if
tell
I
you,
pass you in 20, will you stop
do
saying
this,
emotional
you know,
things?
Okay, but also, can I just say, again, I know because
Nick, you were going to say something. Sorry.
no, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
So obviously, a couple of days ago was Valentine's Day. Did any of you see that the bromance thing that the Justice League Twitter shared?
I saw that.
Oh my god, what was that garbage? Like, like, oh my, like the fact that. Like, it's one thing for the fans to say that, because obviously, like, there's always been this, like, Superman, Batman bromance, but the fact that, like, the Justice League Twitter had to share that, it's like, okay, this is...
On Valentine's Day, about a franchise that's centered around one heterosexual romance. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I don't know. I have no fucking...
And apparently they forgot that Lois Lane was even in the movie, because...
I was gonna say, they just
oh god, I hated how they treated Lois Lane.
She was even in the clip. They put a clip of her in the stupid bromance video, and I was like, "What are you do? What do you do? Are you just being really obvious about this? You're saying like fuck Lois Lane because that's what that video looked like to me."
Yeah, and speaking of Lois Lane, I did not like the way Justice League treated Lois Lane in this film.
None of us did. Welcome to the club.
I can join.
But I think for me is that I was never the biggest fan of Lois Lane because you know most forms of media depicted Lois Lane as just this regular reporter. But Man of Steel and Batman v Superman really made me appreciate how important Lois Lane is, not only to Superman, but to a lot of this, the DCEU, because it was Lois Lane who figured out that Clark was Superman. It was Lois Lane who helped him to be Superman. It was Lois Lane who figured out everything that Lex Luthor was doing. Like, Lois Lane is a badass. Like, that made me realize Lois Lane is such a badass female character. And I was amazed with her, and I wanted to see more of her. But then Justice League came, and it felt like it reduced her to just being, you know, a sort of background love interest until, like, you know, the farm scene. But even then, I feel like Lois Lane wouldn't just, you know, be regretful to this sort of character. And I think one of the ways that I found out that this was definitely Joss Whedon tampering with Lois Lane was, I think you guys mentioned it in Man of Steel, how her makeup always looked so flawless and just looked so good all the time. But then I look at Justice League, and it's like, it feels like they just saturated a lot of her face to me. If that makes any sense?
Yeah, well, that's like when like those stills.
Adams looks horrifying. It's so upsetting.
How do you do that to Amy Adams of all people?
She is.
If you have Amy Adams. You have Amy Adams in your fucking film. You have Amy Adams, and to treat her like that, and to act like this is like something that's like halfway decent and okay, like to have like poor Amy and Diane sitting in a room together being alternate versions of characters that they've spent 2 movies building, and just basically like Amy can't do her job because Martha isn't Martha, and Diane can't do her job because Lois isn't Lois. And for them to, it's the most upsetting, awkward scene to watch in the entire world because it just feels like both actresses are so uncomfortable. And the way that Joss disrespects the Kents just makes me absolutely crazy, just out of my mind, insane. Like, I just cannot handle the blatant, like poor Jonathan is in the fucking ground. He's dead. He should have been safe from this. And yet, he dragged him out one more time, trussed up his corpse, and said, here's a stupid ass thing that my dad used to say. As if this Jonathan Kent would ever say something so fucking foolish. And
wait, which one? Did you say his dad says he's a fan of justice? Which line was that?
No,
it was the hope is like your car key.
Hope is like your car key.
Hope is like your car keys.
Oh my god.
So surface
See, that's how forgettable this movie is.
Okay.
He put those words in Jonathan Kent's poor dead mouth, and it's just like.
And then you had the nerve to have ugly mustache face Clark Kent say it.
Oh god.
That's what that was the first scene where I knew.
I was like, it shouldn't be that hard just to erase a mustache. What on earth is that? Like, it was so clear.
That was the moment for me where I'm like,
$500 computer.
Yeah.
oh yeah, I saw that.
I spent time staring at that, and then I did the comparison of side by side, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could say it, but it does look so much better on this side. Why, guys?
Wait, wasn't it the deep fake site that the guy tried to?
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Justice League intro hurt me so much, especially because the flight scene and the entire sequence with Jor-El in Man of Steel is like one of my most favorite scenes in the entire history of movies. And Jor-El gave Clark a perfect explanation what this symbol means, what his hope actually means. And then saying that this symbol is like a river and hope it's like a car keys. Like, what the fuck?
He's just pulling hokum out of various orifices. He's just like, well, they're from Kansas, so the following stereotypes apply. Like, this is the first time that I've ever been offended on behalf of the Midwest.
It's like the beginning of the film was a sign to say that, like when I went into this film, I thought, okay, I think I'm gonna have a good time. Then the hope is like your car keys, the ugly mustache, the symbols meant to wind like a river. It was at that point that I was like, oh, I'm in for some shit today.
Also, first of all, if you want more badass Lois Lane, you should watch Smallville from season 4. Erin Durance is amazing. You will love her.
Also,
I have to watch.
Regarding Lois Lane in general and Amy Adams, they also promoted Justice League with this motion poster with quote by Lois Lane that is not even in the movie as well. Like
that works better than her stupid speech at the end. Not saying that Lois Lane is stupid, but that speech at the end about hope. You just have to look up in the fucking sky. Like, what the fuck?
Oh yeah, that was the worst.
Oh my god, the hope rhetoric. The hope rhetoric in this movie. I swear to God.
And at the same time, we get the beautiful promo of the poster where she says something entirely different that makes better sense. That there's, there's stronger people here, but they're not here to make us feel small. They're here to help us realize how big we can be. It was like, holy crap, that's way better. Why on earth would you erase one and put in the subpar, just look in the sky bullcrap? Unless you're Joss and have a tiny wee-wee and just desperately need to feel like you're better. Like, I don't understand any other reason. There is no other reason.
Okay, you know what I think? You know what I think? I think Joss Whedon stole the dialogue from, like, some generic store knockoff Hallmark gift card and was like, this fits in a Justice League movie, right? And then he just ran with it. Like, Hallmark would write better Hope dialogue than this shit. Like,
I picture Joss Whedon, like, sitting alone in the dark, being like, okay, what is hope? And then just, like, making a big list of, like, nonsensical gibberish because he doesn't actually know, like, maybe he doesn't have a concept for the word or something, or he's never struggled, so I mean, like, his idea of hope is probably very, but, like, what really devastates me about this is that, like, it's this particular message about hope is so destructive and so off base and weird and fucked up toward people who have depression.
Yes.
And we're doing a movie. We're producing a movie in which the director's daughter killed herself. Like, this is like it's just like if you thought about it for 15 seconds, you would know this was a fucking indelicate thing to say.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
It was just absolutely horrifying.
Just find your car keys and look up, and you'll feel better. better, you know. Oh my god.
And that's the thing, is it basically paints people who complete suicide as weak. And I think that is so scary and so fucked up and so stigmatizing, and also just personally hurtful to a person who worked on this film for the majority of the film. Like, personally offensive. And I think that that's the part that just really grates me about the Hope shit, because like I think I would have taken it apart one way or the other, but like seeing it in context and understanding that Autumn is a part of this movie, whether anyone likes it or not, to know that and to just sort of have this sort of like shitty rhetoric about how basically, like, you know, if you don't have hope, then you're just not looking hard enough, like, just go find your car keys, idiot. It's just
and what saddened me about this, in terms of what they thought when they said hope, I think it really is damaging, because it just harks back to what people think hope in terms of Superman is. Like, with that scene, I think people were thinking, oh, hope as in Superman's version of hope. But no, it's not just Superman's version of hope. It's hope for a whole bunch of other people who are going through different situations. Hope isn't just, you know, a man in a blue costume and a big red S on his chest. Hope is finding some small glimmer of light in the darkness. Like, hope is trying to find the positive in so much negative. That's what hope can stand for, and it can stand for so many other things that can be so, you know, it could be so great for people. But I feel like with this film, it just put hope into this small, minuscule sort of box and didn't try to break it out of it. And it just focused only on Superman's form of hope, in which you just gotta look up in the sky. Almost to say that, hey, you don't have to worry about anything as long as there's someone there to do the work for you and save you. You don't have to.
Just let the hero take care of you. Everything's cool, you know. Which is like impossible. And we've just spent 2 films exploring about how he can't be there for everyone. It is impossible. He is not a god, you know. And so, and like, you know how many people I have read and heard talk about how they found hope and something to hold on to through these films by watching Clark go through his own struggles, by finding someone who was relatable in spite of all of his amazing strength and powers, who still struggles, you know, and that meant so much to them. And now it's, never mind, you don't have to worry about that. He's just always going to be Mr. Happy Smiley there, and he'll always be there to save you, and that's what's going to make your life good. And it is such a slap in the face to, like, what the original idea of hope was supposed to be in these films when Zack started with Man of Steel, you know, like what on earth? That original speech that we heard. Yeah, see, thank you.
It starts with
the last one. The first one was empowering.
This is what we know. You know? This is what we know. The world has grown darker, and that we have reason to fear. Those 2 things are so freaking important, because you cannot just say, oh, well, you know, hope is about seeing the best. No, like, hope, you have to be able to say, there is darkness. We have to acknowledge that there is struggle. And if you don't begin by acknowledging that there is struggle, you cannot really understand what these films are supposed to be about, which is about acknowledging the struggle and the audacity of hope in the face of that. Is what's supposed to be powerful about it.
And if you don't acknowledge, yes, we're in darker times. Yes, you have reason to fear. You're right, before you start anything you say after that is trite bullcrap that most people who are struggling are going to write right off, because you sound like one of those, well, just, you know, cheer up and you'll feel better. You know, and so just, I cannot believe the difference of this. Like, I'm not saying I could have done a better job, but I probably could have done a better job. Any of us could have done a better job. But at the same time, like when I write fanfic, I don't like when people are always like, oh my gosh, this new character is coming. Are you going to write a story for them? And it's like, no, because I haven't seen him on screen yet. And people don't get that, but it's true. Because you need to get a feel for the way they walk, the way they move, their syntax in speech when they talk, you know, the things that they say, you know, all these kind of things to get an actual feel for the character. And then I can feel like I can do my best to turn around and put that on paper in a new situation. And so it feels like Zach came in or not Zach, excuse me, Joss, and looked at the beautiful films that came before, and then went, okay, that's great and all, but I'm not going to try to make it as close to what he wanted as possible to fulfill that vision. I'm going to go ahead and put my stamp all over it because I want to have the acclaim, and I want to have the, oh my gosh, you're so awesome at the end of this.
Because Joss knows best. Yeah, that's what it is.
It just smacks of nasty, arrogance. I hate it. I truly hate it, because when you're coming into something like this that's already been established, you don't just start over and go, yeah, I'm going to do it my way now. No, you are coming to something that's already been there. If you want to do that, you need to start your own thing. But you can't come into something that's already been established and just turn it all around and do it whatever way you want to. There was already something here. Do you know how heartbreaking it would have been to have seen even a reshot, funky mustache reshoot of Superman on the cell phone, but have them talk about the S, and he doesn't go, oh, it's winding like Kirky's. Instead, he goes, oh, well, on my planet, this means hope, and then to have it cut out, and then you realize that right now, hope is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have broke my heart there. I'd have been weeping before we ever got any further in. That's all we needed. But instead,
I think, in fact, the cell phone video was a pretty good choice. The cell phone video was an interesting choice.
Yeah.
It was really dynamic.
Yeah, it was.
It was a cool thing that, I mean, it brought Snapchat into that universe, which was very, very cool and important, I think, in terms of, like, immersing you in what it means. Like, in what it means to live without Superman. And then having this sort of, I mean, this is the thing, is that Joss is really good at that. He is really good at pulling at your heartstrings for a lost character. He's basically, like, this is a move he made in Angel, that it was brilliant and it worked, so he just used it again in Justice League. Yeah, it's exactly what he did with Angel. And it was a good moment. Like, I think that reusing it was probably a good choice. It shows that he's a one-trick pony, but it was a good choice. It's just that, like, it had no respect for who the character was before that moment. And that's what we're getting into in comic book movies in general. Like, we're getting into this idea that even though there's a cinematic universe, we're going to treat every single characterization like it's a reboot. Like, we've just basically turned them into cartoons where everybody wears the same outfit every day because they're always the same person, and everything has to be returned to status quo at the end of the film. Yes. And that is really toxic and really, really hurtful to the way that this art could go. And Joss has reflected that he's on that bandwagon, and that Warner Brothers is on that bandwagon, and that they're basically going to do whatever they want in service of whatever their vision of the character is, instead of, like, respecting what's already there. And that's the thing, is the Snapchat video could have been brilliant. The Snapchat video could have done exactly what it was supposed to do, and then the montage would have happened right after, and it all would have been just devastating, and I would have been crying. I'm not gonna lie, I was crying 2 minutes into the movie, but it would have been so much more intense if I hadn't been, like, assaulted with terrible face at first. I was like, well, maybe it's like 2% of the movie.
Yeah. I know, that was me. Okay, maybe that part's over now. That's one of the minimal reshoots, and now we move on to the Zach stuff. Okay, let's do the Zach stuff. Where's the Zach stuff?
Okay, that was pretty bad, but at least it can't get any worse. Oh,
I so agree with Danielle. I mean, if Superman said to the kids that on my world this symbol means hope, and as my father told me, this hope represents a fundamental belief that potential of every person is to be a force for good. And after that, you see a man assaulting a family of Muslims.
Exactly.
And it would be really devastating. Like, wow.
That would be so Zach. Oh, you win.
So that scene, to me, as a Muslim, I don't know whether you guys know, but as a Muslim, I was looking and I was like, wow, Zach did that. Zach did that in a superhero movie. And it's so relatable, and it's so in the now as to what is happening. And I was like, whoa, he's literally saying that the world has gone crazy because, well, yeah, because of that. And then, like Danielle said, we got that weird phone scene, which I liked, but I hated because it wasn't done well.
Yeah.
And then I was like, whoa, he did that. Yes, this is happening. And I feel scared. So sometimes it scares me to walk down to certain streets or certain places. And I'm just like, yeah, maybe if I didn't have the headscarf on or whatever it is, I won't be attacked or people won't look at me in certain ways. And I related to that. And it was, it got to me. But then the rest of the movie was just horrible.
I need to give you a hug. See?
I think it
Seriously,
just reflects...
so you know, Fatma, I smile at anybody I see wearing a headscarf. I make sure of it. I try to catch their eye, and I smile at them, just so they know that here's one person that's not going to get all funky on you, you know. I'm going to be like, hey, how you doing, fellow person? You know, because, like, I don't know. I'm making that more and more of a point to, like, I always do it anyway, and if there's kids around, I'm like, yay, your kid's so cute. So, like, you know, it just is normal, but I make a point of it without even meaning to. I smile at anybody I can find nearby who's a different race, religion, creed, whatever. You know, it's like, hey, how you doing? You know, because, I don't know, I want them to know that there's people out there who are perfectly fine with who they are, you know, and it just... Yeah.
Katie. Thank you, Katie.
We're going to make the world a better place. Dang it! So.
I just think that it reflects, though, that moment is so shocking, and that moment doesn't feel like it could happen in a comic book movie. I think it reflects something toxic about the genre and how shut down and how isolated and how useless it has become. Yes, because that shouldn't feel out of place. That should feel like it belongs, and that's the thing. It should feel like it belongs in a Superman film, and that is something that the DCEU, I think, has run its course by. Like, that is how we operated before that.
Shine a spotlight on stuff like that. And
I mean, we had victims of human trafficking. We had all sorts of things in Batman versus Superman. We had that stuff in Man of Steel. We had all of this real world stuff, and we really acknowledged people who were actually marginalized. And the idea that, you know, that really upsets me. The idea that might be shocking to be involved. And I mean, like, it is something that's ballsy. It is something that takes a lot of nerve to include in a comic book movie, and that's wrong. That's just straight up, like,
that should be the first thing people are doing, you know. But Zach's doing it, and people are freaking out, and it's like, okay, damage control. Now we got to undo it, and it's like,
who are these heroes for, if not the vulnerable people? Who are these heroes for?
Oh, sorry. But I think, for me, I'm sorry if I'm talking over you guys, but I think for me, I don't know, I'm kind of getting off of track with the DCEU, but I'm kind of, I want to talk about, like, how this whole discussion is going with, in terms of people of race. You guys have watched Black Lightning, right?
I have.
I know.
It's amazing! Yeah. I'm in love with it.
I am embarrassed to admit I haven't caught it yet. Life has been busy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's been busy for me too. But
I really need to, though, because if they show another one, then the first episode's going to be off the CW site, and I'm screwed out of the pilot, so I need to get off my butt and do that.
The first 5 episodes are on the website right now.
Yeah, they are.
They're putting ads up all over the place.
Okay, I'll see if I can do that when we're here. Anyway, continue.
Yeah.
It's okay.
But I think one of the most beautiful moments that I saw in Black Lightning that really made me feel like I was really reflecting on this character was the moment in episode 1 where I think it was at the beginning where I think it was 2 moments actually in this first episode. The first moment was where Black Lightning was driving in the rain, and then he was stopped by this police officer, and he was like handled so roughly, and then they pull him over to one of the witnesses, and he's like, the cop's like, is this the guy? And she says no. And then he's just thrown to go back, and then he questions, like, why was I being arrested? Why was I being so profiled? To which the white dude was like, oh, it's because someone robbed a liquor store. With those implications, it's like, not only did you handle him so roughly for a crime that he didn't do, but then you kind of racially profiled him simply because he was black. And that was a moment that I had not seen in a lot of comic book related anything, and done so so realistically, it scared me because that's exactly what, you know, we go through sometimes, like Black people in America. That's what we go through sometimes, where we're just stopped by police for no reason. And then a second thing, and I don't know, like this kind of harks to what happened, I think, yesterday, if you guys knew, in like Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the situation in Florida with the school. Like, that also hit me so hard because that's another thing that's going on, you know, with the school shooting and all that. And when that Black Lightning's daughter was trying to stop the dude, and then the dude pulled out a gun, and then Black Lightning comes, he literally says straight up that, yo, you don't want to do this, because if you do it, the cops are going to show up, and he said, and they will shoot your black ass for fun. That was
what a great line.
That put goosebumps in me, because that is how it is sometimes for us Black people. And to hear that from a Black superhero, I was like, okay, we are living. This is definitely my new favorite superhero from this point forward. So, but yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about.
It's such a great reflection, though, and I think it calls back. It's such a great reflection of what happens when you put the right creative people in the right positions. Like people are saying, and I've seen this discussion on Twitter, and I think it's interesting. This idea that like that Black Lightning is really, really surprising because it's a CW show, and I to a certain degree I agree with that. But like a lot of people are saying, it is not surprising because of the people involved, because we actually have Black talent behind this, because we actually have people on the writing staff who actually have firsthand experience with those situations.
Flash can't quite pull that off, and it shows, you know.
That's the thing, is getting the right people in the writing room, getting the right people in the director's chair is not about just the mercurial nature of luck. It's about really important. It's real about really institutionalized decisions that happen. And like bouncing Zach off this project was definitely one of those decisions. And I think that it shows that Warner Brothers is not interested in growing in any direction. I mean, like if they're gonna bounce a white dude off of this project for, you know what, like, you know, throwing in a few things that actually happened in the real world, like imagine how many years off they think, you know, actually casting a person of color, actually like hiring a person of color on their writing team is. Like, you know, if they think that's 10 years down the road, I'm not interested. I'm just not interested. I mean,
that's why I appreciate what Zach did. That's why I appreciate what Zach did with his casting, because he was able to get Jason Momoa Polynesian? Polynesian, is he?
Yeah,
he's half Polynesian.
They got a Polynesian guy to play Aquaman. They have someone from Israel to play Wonder Woman. Yep. They had is Ezra Miller Jewish?
Yes.
Yes, and he's queer.
To play the Flash, and of course they had an African American play Cyborg, and they only had like 2 white guys to play like Batman and Superman. And even before Justice League, there was Suicide Squad, which also had so much diversity in its cast. And I felt like that was the DCEU I wanted to see more of, like more diversity.
Same.
Totally agree.
Others for characters. That's the Justice League and DCEU I want to see more of.
Yes. Yep, me too. And it really bummed me out to see this kind of development, because I just don't know if we're going to get that going forward, and that bothers me very much.
Fine.
I mean, you know,
and knowing the scenes that they cut, knowing that the majority of those scenes were Cyborg scenes, knowing that they actually took time to replace Superman scenes, but that in terms of the Cyborg scenes, they just cut a subplot entirely, and it was a subplot with fucking Nazis.
Yeah,
do you know what? Like I noticed this on Tumblr. Hi, this is Rebecca, by the way. I'm here now.
Hi.
I've been here. I have no idea how much I missed. Maybe you guys have been here for an hour, but I just came back. So, anyways, I saw somebody on Tumblr. I didn't say this, so these aren't my own words. I don't think. Talking about how it's like Cyborg has to like prove himself or whatever. Like this kind of idea that like, oh, why is he here? Like, but it's like, why is the one black character like the person that you're thinking needs to like be worthy of me? Like,
we all know why.
He stole the freaking movie. He was the best character in the movie. They couldn't defeat how amazing he was. They tried by cutting his scenes, but he still owned the movie. Like, honestly.
I'm telling you, like, here's my experience in Justice League was just like, oh, this is great, this is great, this is great. Ray, what the fuck? Like, he brought that first scene, like, I was just like, wait, I expected him to be good, but this is like, I don't know what to do
I fell in love with him, like, the moment he opened his mouth.
Spine stiff, electrifying fucking performance. Holy crap.
That is natural talent right there too.
Yeah, and with Ray, what I liked about Ray, I think there was like he was able to jumble both a sort of serious, tormented, and dark performance, but also carry around a more lighter personality as well. And he was able to combine those two personalities into one. Like there was a moment at the end where he was with Superman. I don't know if that was a Joss or a Zack scene, but there was that moment where he was laughing with Superman, and he was like, "Man, my toe is hurt. I don't know how that can be possible." And I smiled at that scene because I just love that scene because it was like it showed Victor's humanity, and it also showed Ray's talent. And Ray's such a good person too. If you've seen him on his Instagram, he is such a ball of sunshine.
Isn't he? That's my tag for him on Tumblr is Ray of Sunshine Fisher because he is like he is so sweet. I love that dude so much, and I agree. Like I'm pretty sure that was Joss's addition that he's talking about his toes hurt, but the way he delivered it was so freaking adorable. I was like, oh look, I have another son. You know, he's just so cute, and yeah, he did a wonderful job. I want to see the rest of his stuff though because that kind of talent should not be just kept in a back room somewhere and cut scenes. That's not cool. So I need some more.
Well, that's what I'm always so grateful. Like a Comic-Con last year, like when the Justice League cast came out, like I yelled at Ray and he immediately pointed me and was like, "Hey," I'm like, "You acknowledge my existence. I can die happy." Like him and Ezra both were like the most. I can tell they're both the most excited to be there because I think neither of them have experienced that sort of thing. Like they're at Comic-Con before, but it was just
Remember that one? I don't know if that one clip where they both got their action figures.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh. I didn't think you could have that much cute in a video and not have it explode on itself. You know, like that was just so adorable. I was immediately like sold on them just from that clip. It was like, well, yep, I have two more. So they're so cute. They were so cute, and they're so sweet together, man. They're so funny. It's like they got the sexiness, they got everything.
Yeah. Oh, and then there was that one thing that Ray did at Comic-Con. I think you guys remember what it was, where he was wearing one shirt, and then he literally tore that thing off, and it said "I Heart Zack Snyder" on it. That was so
amazing. Ray, loyal Fisher, I love him so much. I'm so proud. Like honestly,
he is such a wonderful person. You know, I don't know. You're right. He's like loyal, but he also knows he's humble enough to really appreciate the chance that gave him, and to really, you know, like I don't know. He's just so fresh.
I think there's only so much that he can say about the situation.
Oh yeah,
and also he's not becoming an actor. He doesn't want to
I think that was a clear expression of where he falls, and the fact that he isn't on board with sort of just like trashing Snyder, especially since there's no way anyone else would have done that sort of headhunting, because he headhunted for these people. Like he went out and he looked and he found people who were exceptionally talented and exceptionally fit for the role, and most importantly, like super freaking excited about it, like super pumped to do this character. You know, I mean, like every time Jason tells a story about being cast and he walks in saying like, you know, oh, maybe I'll be Lobo, I like start crying again. Because I'm like, this is his life. this is the rest of his life. The rest of his life is being typecasted into these roles that have, you know, no moral redemption and no defining qualities. And to not be able to play that range of characters, like, yeah, it's great to play a villain, but it's not great to always play a villain and to know why, you know?
And do you know what's really sad about this whole thing? Is that they're currently working on a Flashpoint, and this diverse and amazing cast and everything could possibly go in a Flash. And I'm pun intended. Sorry, but
yeah, you're fine.
Ezra Miller could go in a Flash, and so could all of them. I can't.
You know, if they dump those actors just for somebody else, I'm out. Like, for good, for good. I have minimal interest right now, but I will go support Jason and Aquaman, and I will definitely support Ray or Ezra should they get their own film finally. But if they did that, you're right, it would be like, well, I'm out. I am out, because that's that kind of treating people like trash. They've already done it worse enough that they're right on the tip with me, but that's it, you know. If you're right. Yeah. It's entirely possible. And if they did, well, that's no for me. So, yeah.
I think the only one that might save from this cast is Gal Gadot, because of how successful Wonder Woman was.
Yeah.
And they'll find a way in the storyline of Flashpoint to keep her who she is. And whether Aquaman does well or not, they might keep Jason on. But I think they want to get rid of Ray, because of how they treated him in Justice League, and if Barry Allen doesn't do well in anything,
if they get rid of Ray,
I would say people up on the chopping block, according to like what I've seen from Warner Brothers and what I saw in Justice League, are probably Kiersey, Ray, and Amy, and any of those people being like officially fired or excluded from future projects where they should be there would be the end for me. Would be knocked out automatically.
I say I'm already not happy about the fact that they cut out Kiersey's scene, and by doing that, they've given them the shot at having to recast her entirely. And it's like, no, leave her alone. No. She's lovely. There's nothing wrong with her. She's great, and I want to see her as Iris West. So stop it.
Is the thing too,
and they better not touch Ray and Amy. I'm worried Amy won't come back. She didn't even show up to the premiere. I don't think she's happy at all. I don't blame her. And it's entirely possible that they don't axe her out and she just says, I'm not coming back, guys. If Zach's not there, I'm not doing it. So
it's their job to make her happy. It's their job to do what they need to do. And that is where I stand with that, is this idea that, like, they keep trying to, like, say, like, oh, well, these actresses aren't really interested in coming back, and, we asked them, and they were like, no. And, like, there's a reason for that no.
Yeah.
Like, if you treat actresses like crap, they're not coming back. And, like, I'm not taking any excuses on this. Like, it's their job to make Kiersey happy. It's their job to figure out what they need to do to keep her. And if they can't figure that out, then that's their bad. It has nothing to do with her.
I worry most about Kiersey, honestly. I worry very much.
Oh, yeah.
Because her one scene was cut. She's in great jeopardy.
Huge jeopardy.
That bothers me very much, because she was a wonderful choice, and I would really like to see that come to fruition. And I'm not going to be happy at all if they recast her at all, and nobody else. I agree. You can't touch anybody else, or I'm out for good, guys. So I hope you're listening, because I'm already right on the borderline of being out. I just don't want to unsupport Jason and anybody else. So.
Speaking of bad WB choices. So, how's about that Michael Bay directing Lobo?
Oh God, no!
Good grief!
No!
That's not confirmed.
No!
Just ignore it. It's not confirmed.
I'll say this, in that it's a perfect fit for Michael Bay, because he is a sexist piece of shit, and that's what Lobo is, a sexist piece of shit. They're perfect for each other, but in a perfect world, which this obviously isn't, that movie would never exist. But who knows what's gonna happen? All I know is, Michael Bay, go fuck yourself. I don't want you anywhere near the DC universe at all, even if it is a character who's shitty anyway. So, whatever, go fuck yourself, dude. That's my
Can I ask, what does
about
Lobo
this
do?
He's literally just a fucking space biker. That's it.
Does he do anything special other than be a space biker?
Not really, no.
No, he's an alien mercenary. So he just kills people. That's about it. Like,
does he have powers? Does he have weapons?
He has super strength. I mean, like he's got like the alien general package, like the alien A package.
So
like he has super strength and a flying motorcycle, and you know, yeah, and he carries a chain.
That's about it.
Why are they making a movie? Like, why does it matter?
Because Warner Brothers keeps thinking it's a good idea.
Made a movie is because he's an avatar for all the misogynist fans that feel cut out of the DCEU. I really do. He
doesn't seem interesting.
It's terrible.
He's not really that interesting.
That's the thing, is that he's a terrible character too. On top of that, like, he's misogynist, but he's also boring as hell.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, the only silver lining we ever could get, if that situation came true, and by gum, I'm not, where's some wood? I need to, like, let's hope it doesn't. But, like, if it should happen, maybe we would actually get people watching it and going, oh, this is what a misogynist film in the DCEU actually looks like. Maybe I've been giving Zach the wrong label, you know? That would be the only good thing I can see coming out of this.
They'll just lump it all in. They'll be like,
you're right.
Honestly, like, I would want that to happen, if anything, but at the same time, people will be like, oh, this is just like a Zack Snyder movie. Which I think is what would happen, because people always think that Michael Bay and Zack Snyder are the exact same, just because they're both.
No.
Gosh, I know.
You know what's funny? It's funny that Zach, Larry Fong, and Michael all went to school together at the same time.
Oh yeah.
And I really want somebody to do like a web series or something with the three of them like interacting, because Zach and Larry would be always hanging out and having like ideas.
And Michael would come stuff, and then everyone turns and goes like, "What the fuck, bro?"
Yeah, like Michael comes and he's like, "What are you guys doing, guys?" And Zach and Larry, like, I don't know, we're making like a film about like oranges, and Michael will be like, "Oh, cool, you guys coming to the party? We're gonna bang some hoes." And Zach and Larry are just gonna be like, and that'll just be.
Wait, hold on, I'm still stuck on the part where you said people compared Zach to Michael Bay? When was this?
Oh my god.
This is all the time.
I'm pretty sure I have a Tumblr post like dedicated to it because I was so angry.
Okay,
like,
well,
I had
first
to,
off,
like,
hold up. I gotta rant a second.
Go ahead, go right ahead.
They are not at all the same. They are not any more different than like apples and a cake. Because no, they are not the same. I cannot. Who says that? Because Michael Bay does his things, because I've seen some of his films. Michael Bay has this sort of attachment to things being hyper-masculine, making beautiful women, or just putting that one female actress in all of his films. What's her name?
Megan Fox.
Huh?
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox, yeah. Like, Michael Bay has that obsession with putting Megan Fox in his films, explosions, like toilet jokes, and just all around unpleasantry. All on the fact that he is a terrible script writer and director at the same time. But because there's so much explosions in the film, people just kind of gravitate toward it, but later on realize, yeah, his movies are crap. Zack Snyder, on the other hand, has a sort of artistic take to his films that make them all seem like they're like moving pictures, like moving painting. He has a deep semblance to them. And he does this amazing thing where he has the characters not even say a word of dialogue, but yet you can feel every single scene that's going on just from how their facial expressions are doing. And that's just his trust in actors. To compare those two and say that they are exactly alike, I'm a kill him. Oh this is how ignorant. This is how ignorant film discussions on the internet have become, though, because you hear these kind of things touted from like mainstream nerd publications, because literally we have lost the ability to talk about film in any way, shape, or form. And I don't know what it is, if we're not, educating on any level, or if people just don't care anymore, or if it's just isolated to the genre. But the idea that someone would compare these two filmmakers basically because they happen to make films in the same genre. Literally. That's the only connection that you can find, is literally like they both seem to really like action films.
That's it. That's all. Like they both. There's nothing else. And like the idea that people would just like compare those two, like it speaks so deeply to like the ignorance that fuels these discussions, and the fact that people who have no idea what they're talking about feel empowered to speak at great length about film instead of just being like, hey, maybe I could learn something by like listening to someone who knows better.
You know what I've been thinking about Michael Bay recently, and I do want him to work again, but not in the DCEU, but I just want him to work again because he seems to really be in a funk right now. Because for years he's been promising that this is the last Transformers movie he's gonna do, and then he makes another one, and then he's like, "This is the last Transformers movie I'm gonna do." And obviously, I didn't watch the latest one that came out, but
I did.
I heard that it was garbage crap, and that I mean, obviously he's obviously in a funk, and it's like, dude, if you think you're such a great director, why don't you leave this franchise and go do something else? Because clearly you've lost all motivation.
But I've seen the film. I've seen it. It is atrocious, man. Because like it was literally an insult to my intelligence as a person who loves film. It was paced horribly. Like the little kids that are in the movie, right? They're nothing but a bunch of flirtatious, sexist, dumbass kids. The little girl is annoying, and of course. Matt Damon's character and everyone else around them act like they're like 10-year-olds in 40-year-old people's bodies. Then of course the sexy British woman wearing the sexy clothes and all that. Then you got the annoying other robots, and then you get the Transformers who are just as annoying. And then of course there's that plot where, oh, Optimus Prime is turning evil. Nah, he's not really evil for long. It's just a small thing. And God, it really makes me think, how have these movies been so successful? And the humor in this film is just constantly in your face. It was like while I was watching it, I was thinking, God, this is a lot like a Marvel film to me, but slightly worse. And that's how I felt about that film.
That's how I felt like watching the last one.
I think that if Michael Bay was stuck in an infinite Transformers movie making loop, kind of like a purgatory, like his own personal, like endless fucking like Transformers making. Like if that could be his fate, I feel like it would be exactly what he deserves. Like more or less. Yeah. Like what a. But that's like coming from like like not just I want to be clear. I don't think that making a bad movie makes you a bad person. Michael Bay is just also a bad person. It's like you can read what Megan Fox has to say about him.
In various places. I've read it all. It's bad.
He's a mess.
Yeah. Didn't you hear he was gonna do Dora the Explorer once?
What?
No, go look it up. Go look it up. He was apparently going to do a Dora the Explorer movie, or at least produce it.
What?
You're not allowed near that little girl.
I've never been so concerned for a little girl more than my life.
Groundbreaking filmmaking. The first director to both whitewash and sexualize Dora the Explorer.
Oh God. Oh my God.
Become a slam session. All right, we're moving
so
on.
Horrifying.
All right. Okay. Seriously though, I'm gonna go back to the deleted scenes really quick, just because.
An hour and a half later, it's okay.
They're so beautiful. Seriously, you're right. Those 2 minutes were like, oh, this is the Zack Snyder goodness that I wanted. Thank you so much. And now I just want more. I'm insatiable. But like, it was the perfect pinnacle of Superman's arc. You know what I mean? You can tell he spent 3 films building actual Superman that everybody expects. And Zack, I don't know, I just have great respect for him. He does not rush into anything when it comes to that, It's like, well, we're going to build him like this. And by Justice League, he'll be that Superman that everybody, knows and loves. But, sadly, he would still be Zack's Superman and not the macho, funky guy we got in Justice League.
What's so funny about it is that, like, everybody, like, the big line is that the DCEU was rushed.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are we talking about?
Like, Justice League came around.
Like, Justice League was rushed. I'm
there was so much talk
that.
about how here's the thing. I think WB was rushing. I think they did desperately want to get up and running as fast as possible, and they didn't want to spend as much time on the ground laying as Marvel did, and as they should have, stuff like that. But Zack is not a rusher, and I think that while they were making demands, and it went quickly from Man of Steel sequel to screw it, let's do Batman v Superman, and then he went, all right, we'll make that work, and he made it work. And he made it work magnificently, mind you. Like, I think that they have been rushing. And it's sad, because you're right, before now I would have said, no, they're not. But with all the reports coming out about that, and how they were talking about Man of Steel 2, and then it very quickly went, but what if we bring Batman into it? And he never...
That was Zack's idea.
After that.
Yeah, I mean, like, if we have...
They are rushing, but Zack has taken his time to build this beautiful journey, and to really... I don't know, complete it in a beautiful level. And unfortunately, the general public doesn't appreciate it because they too are rushing. They want him now. They want it right now. They want him to go into the fortress, come back out 15 years later, and be the superhero they want. They don't want him to be developing. They don't want him to have to grow and change and, heaven forbid, have doubts. They want it now. And so they would not wait until Justice League. They refused to wait for 3 films. So they bash and whine and moan about Man of Steel, and then they bash and whine and moan about Batman v Superman. But, it's always been Zack's plan to have Justice League be when Superman fully emerges, accepting and embracing his role as Superman on this planet, and being more or less at peace with that. And that's why it made me so delighted happy to see in the behind-the-scenes stuff when they were filming the shirt rip that everybody said was Joss. I wanted to think it was Zack. I really did want to think he was leading up to that. And sure enough, there he is standing there right next to Henry while Henry's doing it. And I was like, yes, that was Zack. And it took him 3 films to build up to that moment, that iconic Superman moment that everybody wanted. That's good.
I would bet that Whedon doesn't have the base Superman knowledge to even include a nod to a direct comic book cover like that. That's the thing that really pisses me off. Is like, this was never going to work. Justice League was never going to work unless you had a filmmaker who loved and respected and valued Superman. You have to have someone.
I'm gonna go.
Okay.
I gotta go now because I gotta head over to work. But I'm glad you guys had me on here. I really appreciated being a part of this, and I hope for the next one I could be available for it for a little longer.
No, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Totally, it was great.
All right, I'll see you guys. Enjoy the rest of your podcast.
We're almost done, I think.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
But I was saying, I just don't think it was never going to work. It was never going to work with someone who didn't love and respect Superman, and that was the only thing that really needed to happen, because so often in these Justice League stories, Superman gets screwed really badly by the fact that people don't value him as much as they value the other characters. The other characters pretty much take care of themselves, with the exception of Cyborg, who needs an advocate. The characters take care of themselves. Diana has its set path. People love Diana's path. People love what Batman does. People love all of this stuff. They don't need the advocacy that Superman does. Superman needs an advocate in these situations, and that was the reason that I wasn't worried about Justice League, and the reason that I should have been worried about Justice League.
Yeah.
Especially since Joss hates him.
Joss is you're right.
Joss hates everything.
Out there
what are you talking about?
Ruined my experience. So, and you're right. He hates everything.
What is also beautiful about the deleted scene when he goes through Scout Ship and then emerges like in Man of Steel, was a full circle, but when he emerges from Scout Ship in Man of Steel, he's like, he doesn't know what he's going to do now with this costume on and learning his origin. He's still searching himself, but in this time he emerges the Superman. Even his stance is more confident than it was in Man of Steel in this costume, and Oh my god, I just... The more I think about it, it hurts. It hurts even more.
It
To
does.
realize that all of this was taken from us, like literally ripped.
Yep. I agree. It hurt a lot, and I fully admit, I watched that deleted scene, and especially him walking through the ship, and the black suit, and and then turning away from it, and everything. It was so beautiful, and that was my
the
Superman.
score just killed me, man.
Yep, and I cried. I totally did. It was like, there is my guy. There he is. Finally, there he is. And all of Henry's little micro expressions while talking to Alfred, people underestimate his amazing acting. And especially when Zach is there, he does amazing micro expression acting because Zach gives him that time to do it because he's not just foisting more one-liners on him and funny stuff, He gives him time to react. And so just that whole little expression, just like Speed was saying about how he gets called Master Cat, and he's like, was weird. I kind of like it, He's so cute. I mean, it is just everything about it was so wonderful, and I will say, Alfred was wonderful because there was some kind of really awesome reverence in him about, oh my gosh, that's Superman. It was really, really cool. And where originally we thought in the trailer how the liquid in the glass moving was like footsteps or something like that. And we're like, wow, is he really that heavy? Stuff like that. No, of course not. It was the atmosphere, the atmospheric disruption that he does with his flight.
I love his sonic boom. It makes me cry.
That was the best thing ever because the sonic boom shakes it. He looks up like, hi, and then he lands ever so lightly in a Superman way like he does.
Just tenderly and like floating.
The juxtaposition of that kind of power and then how gently he lands is everything about how Zack Snyder treats that character. Immense power, but ever so gentle. And I love that. It is such a beautiful thing, and it was just clearly present there. And then Alfred was just, I don't know, it was wonderful. And somebody somewhere on top brought up, like, oh, how did he know about Alfred and stuff like that? And it's like, dude, he heard them talking. He heard them talking. He knows everything. Batman v Superman. And on top of that, it's like, if he wants to know where Bruce went, he knows exactly who to go ask, and at this point he knows he can trust Bruce, so he knows he can trust Alfred. It's that simple, and it was such a beautiful exchange. It was just wonderful.
It was so Alfred too, because
and it was like, I just want the whole movie now. Sorry, go ahead.
Even within this tiny scene, there's a turn where Alfred starts with this sort of like reverence, where he's like, "Holy shit, Superman's here," which is like what everybody does immediately, which is like candy. It's just gorgeous and beautiful. And there could have been so much more of that in the movie because it's exactly what I wanted from Ezra and Henry. It's exactly what I wanted from Ezra and Henry. I wanted Ezra to just help us with this by being the biggest sweaty fanboy he could possibly be. But this turn that Alfred takes is so gorgeous because he goes from this sort of holy shit, Superman's here, directly to this turn of becoming Alfred again and being sort of immediately blasé and sort of oh yeah, there's another toddler in his onesie arrived. And he needs to be directed, and sort of that little even the fact that his let's hope you're not too late, being a little passive aggressive, where were you? You're not on time.
That is freaking symbol. He's such a little.
He's so perfect.
I love him so much, and I agree in terms of it's all right. So where you been, and my boy is out there doing it, and if he dies and you're not there, I'm gonna have to come for you, So
well, also just this idea that he knows a bunch of grown men who get up in these themed onesies, and he's supposed to take it seriously, and he's like, oh yes, another child has arrived. All of the babies are gonna go have a play date. Don't worry about it. He has this sort of fatherly approach to it. And I think it's very, very cute and charming.
So adorable.
That's what he's more cheated
because that little snippet of behind the scenes stuff where I don't remember, it popped up on Twitter for a little while, but then it disappeared, where the group came into the Batcave and greeted Alfred. I don't think there was any sound with it, but they all walked past him, and he's all like, oh, there's more people here. Has anybody seen that? I loved that.
Well, that was from the behind the scenes from that was from back in October of 2016. That was that video that Zach had put out. Yeah. And it
but
was just,
they walked past him, and it was just so cool because it's just like Wonder Woman, Diana nods at him, and Aquaman's like, "Woo!" and I swear he gives him a 5 or something, and he's like, "What in the?" And it's just honestly so cute. You're right. I've been overrun by toddlers. What's going on here? And it's really, really cute. So I just need the whole movie now, please.
I feel like really cheated out of like the fatherly stuff because there's that picture I think that Clay took of him and Bruce like sitting by the Batmobile, just like sitting down and talking, and I'm just like, yo, we were gonna have a moment, like it was gonna be like really emotional or whatever, and I'm just like.
Some of the best scenes in Batman vs Superman are Alfred and Bruce.
Yes.
Like they're the pinnacle. Like the big climactic emotional moments, the places where the most character work gets done are when Alfred and Bruce are talking, and it's crazy to not include more of that dynamic because they're so wonderful together in the first place.
So good.
And they don't see what the strengths are. They don't see any of the strengths of the movie, or conversely, they think that the strengths are weaknesses.
Oh, and that makes me so sad.
Guys, do you know what?
Stupid.
Right? I feel like we should have a movie just based on Alfred. He gives me so much life that I would be happy to watch him for just like 3 hours talking about or narrating. Actually, him sat there like not even a movie, just like split the screen in half. Alfred on one side.
Alfred just giving commentary on the movie.
Commentary on the event. I need this now.
Dick Grayson and Bruce being the butt of the joke all the time because he's so moody and he's so crazy, and like Superman and just everyone, and he's just like, yeah, this is what I think of them, and I'm stuck being the granddaddy of the entire Justice League and entire superhero family that we have going in the DC universe. And I feel like any Alfred, especially Jeremy Irons' Alfred, would just be so amazing. The sarcasm and the comments. Oh God, yeah.
That's what I'll give all the credit in the world to Michael Caine for the Dark Knight trilogy. Like he did it. He was good as Alfred.
He was a wonderful Alfred.
Yeah, but to me, because before this movie, before they announced who was playing Alfred, my fan cast, my dream cast was Jeremy Irons.
Awesome! And I love when that happens.
I know. This is literally the only time it's ever happened. But honestly, Jeremy Irons is like, in my opinion, much like with Ben Affleck and Batman v Superman, like he is my favorite Alfred. Even like in Justice League, because I feel like Alfred is like the one character who wasn't really tampered with, character-wise. I mean, it's kind of hard to get Alfred wrong.
There were some lines that were obviously Joss, but you're right. Yeah. Much of his stuff was still. Basically.
No, yeah, like it was like he didn't feel like drastically changed from like how he was previously, but just the way Jeremy Irons portrays him, he's just so like sarcastic, but also very like warm and loving, as like you would want Alfred to be, but also this like guy who can be a badass. He embodies, I think, everything I love about the Alfred character, and it's just I love him so much. Like again, I love Michael Caine, but he's my favorite Alfred hands down.
He is just wonderful. Somebody pointed out the difference between in Batman v Superman, he was working on the Batmobile, and then later in Justice League, when Superman comes in, he's working on the car, and suggested that was a transition from Bruce's, bad place, so to speak, that he was in, his more warlike and battle-ready persona versus now we're going to go and do things and kind of coming back into his real life. And I thought that was actually a nice comparison, nice parallel. And there was something else I was going to say, and now it has left me. So,
well, that's what just like really watching those scenes.
Jeremy Irons.
Go ahead.
I really like Jeremy Irons' Alfred as well as the Alfred that's in Gotham right now. Like, they're kind of similar in that they're both like badasses and they don't really just like sit around and just be like, okay, Master Wayne. Like, both of them are like very like, I don't know, involved, if you will. Mm-hmm. And they both look like they could like kick somebody's ass. I mean, when it out in Gotham, like he has kicked people's asses, so it's like But like, I don't know, they're kind of similar in the way that like, even though they both kind of dress similarly with the vest and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I kind of, I don't know, in my head I can kind of like
I can see that. Sean Pertwee
if the universes
does a
were
really
overlapped.
nice Alfred. Yeah,
Yeah,
he does.
maybe
And
like-
I like his whole history and, you know, badassness and that kind of thing. And Michael Caine had that kind of theory for his Alfred as well, but he was obviously way past prime to be able to do that. And so it's interesting because Michael Caine, I love his Alfred, but his is much more of a father figure when it comes right down to it, the way they've used him throughout the films and stuff like that. He was there from very young, which, you know, he always was, but he was very much more the emotional center of the relationship in terms of father figuring and stuff like that. And he always helped him on the other stuff, but he was always much more about the emotional relationship with Bruce. And it's really interesting to see the other two Alfreds, and especially Jeremy Irons', because he still has some of that, and he still very much cares for Bruce. You can tell he is still his alternate father figure, but he's also very much someone who is always his number two. He's always his second in command. He's always there, and it's just a different feeling. You know, he just, I don't know, he's extremely capable, extremely, you know, I don't know, there is a difference in there, you're right. And he looks more wiry in just the way, and the way he hangs out, stuff like that. I keep picturing like some gun in a holster, especially in Batman v Superman. The suspenders he wears are leather, and so they keep reminding me of a shoulder holster. And you just look at him and automatically think, this is a dude you don't totally want to cross, you know?
Well, we
like,
also have a Bruce that
end up
uses
in trouble,
we a
you come
lot.
out. So, I'm sorry, what?
We also have a Bruce that uses we a lot.
Yeah.
You know, like when he's talking, he says, we've always been criminals, Alfred. Like,
Yeah,
he
you're right.
includes Alfred in the mission, whereas before, Alfred kind of plays like the house mom sort of
Yeah.
idea. Like, she just sort of, like, stays in the shadows and like, half the time disapproves of what's
Yes.
happening.
Yes.
Whereas we have an Alfred and Jeremy Irons that's much more engaged, much more directly involved
He's much
in
more of
what's
an
happening.
ally. You're right. Thank you. That's what the difference I was trying to go for, but I couldn't get it out. So thank you. That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Well, and I think making him like a mechanic and making him like part of the actual like nuts and bolts of working on things makes him more of an accomplice to
yes.
Bruce's crimes.
Oh, yes.
Which I think makes it a lot. I don't know. It's a good change. I like it in terms of that. I mean, I loved Michael Caine's performance, but I also think that Bale didn't give him a lot necessarily in that performance. Like I think that Bale wasn't terribly emotive in Alfred's direction, and Caine had to kind of bring all of that emotion to the role himself. He had to kind of invent the relationship from scratch instead of kind of, it felt like he wasn't really working with Bale so much as like working in the room with Bale. And I think that was one of the challenges. Just because I love Michael Caine so much, and I don't want to like denigrate what's possibly the best thing about the Nolan franchise. Like one of the best things about the Nolan franchise is his performance.
But I agree. He was very much set up to be more of a disapproving parent in a lot of ways. And Jeremy Irons is not. He is very much like down in the trenches with Bruce doing this, you know? I mean, there are times when he's piloting the you know, doing drone mode and piloting the Batwing. I mean, come on. He is involved in every aspect, you know? And that's way different.
I think
he likes it too, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
he acts sour face sometimes, but I know he likes it.
Well, I think that making him part of the mission, it shows a better understanding of Batman than anything else, because the mission really matters to Batman fans. And, you know, in order for us to be Team Alfred, he kind of has to endorse the mission. He has to put his stamp on it and say, like, this is something that matters. We're doing a good thing. You know, this is what's right for Gotham. Whereas I think Michael Caine's Alfred was written by someone who didn't necessarily care as much about Batman, wasn't necessarily as invested, which is evidenced by the fact that Alfred's entire arc is gaining the satisfaction of Batman not existing anymore. Like, gaining the satisfaction of freeing Bruce from the burden of Batman, whereas, like, Alfred in the DCEU is either, you know, being like, this is part of our grief process, it's, you know, it's been 30 years, but I guess we're still doing it, or, you know, actually being like, this is what's good for Gotham, this is our mission, this is what matters. You know, he even comes down hard on it, where he says, like, this is the Wayne name, and you're besmirching it. by what you're doing.
And it's really fascinating because even in Batman v Superman, he has wholeheartedly supported the Gotham campaign all these years, and it's only now that Bruce is starting to slip over the side
Absolutely.
of what is acceptable that he's like, whoa, this is a problem, dude. But later when they're talking and stuff, and Bruce says, this is my legacy, he's like, what, 20 years of fighting crime means nothing? Like to him it meant something. To him it was like, this is what we were doing for the city, this was good. And Bruce is like, no, it means, nothing to me anymore because they just keep coming back. And so it's really fascinating. And I agree, it's only when Bruce starts to go over the line that he's like, I've always supported this, but you're going too far now. This is a problem now. Right up to the point where he straight up says, dude, this guy's not our enemy. What are you doing? That's where it's finally, this has gone too far here, and now it's not just for Gotham and we're going to do this great thing for the city. Now you're just going out and entertaining murder, and that's not okay. I can't back that. And so, yeah. It's really
and in terms of messaging, I think it's so much more strong because it really has Alfred ask the question of it sets up this idea that it matters why you do what you do, not just what you do. It matters what the seed of that intention is and whether or not you're doing that with anger in your heart. And if you are doing that with anger in your heart, that needs to be something that leads to ugly acts, that leads to acts that aren't moral. And I think that's a huge part of the fact that the DCEU has a really strong moral center, and it has a rhetoric of social justice. It has a rhetoric of sort of like arming people with the ability to sort of go out and do good acts and to, be inspired toward what it looks like to be a good person in this world. And that, mattered until it was dead, and now it's dead.
Yeah, and it sucks. But I agree. See, that's why even the branding, he's like, whoa, you're not doing this just to get information, or you're not doing this just to, you're doing this because you're angry and you want to inflict pain, and that's not okay. This is not okay, Bruce, It amazes me how many people can watch that film and be like, well, the movie is making it seem like that's okay and that's all right for him to do. Alfred's over there going, whoa, what are you doing? Alfred is the social conscience there going, whoa, this is not okay, dude. Look at what you're doing. This is a problem. This is not okay. And the one thing I deeply wish, even though, I know Zach had to do what he had to do, but the fact that the theatrical cut didn't include just the one line, or the two lines, of after he comes back on at the end and says, sorry for listening in, but I found Martha and stuff like that, and Bruce says, I don't deserve you, Alfred. No, sir, you don't. I wish that had been kept in there, simply because it really shows that he's going, you went over the line, and I'm not proud of you, but I'm still here for you, and I'm always going to be, and it's such a strong moment of him showing us, the audience, no, he was not okay. He was over the line, and this was unacceptable. However, there's still good in him, if you'll excuse the Star Wars, and I'm still and so, and in a way, he's that stand-in for us as the audience going, okay, he was over the line. He was too far. He wasn't the Batman I recognized, but now I'm starting to see some of the Batman I remember. Okay.
I understand why these people watch these movies and miss every single word that every female character says. I understand why that's happening. I get it.
Like that. I understand it, but
I understand why it's happening. I can see, I look at that and I go, okay, all right, that's normal. That's just normal fanboy garbage. That happens. But they also just apparently ignore everything Alfred says, and it's Alfred. He's right. That's his role. His role is to walk into the background of a comic book, mumble the truth, and then walk out. That's his role. His role is to come in and sort of be like, well, here's the obvious, answer to the situation. Goodbye, Master Bruce, and just walk out. But all these dudes are going to see this movie. All these people are going to see this movie and just completely ignoring everything Alfred says, because it's not. He gives us everything. Yeah. He sits down, like you said. He tells us everything that we should know about this situation.
I don't know.
He provides a moral compass.
Yep.
I don't know what people are listening to when they watch BVS, because they don't listen to Lex Luthor. They don't listen to Lois. They don't listen to Clark. They don't listen to anything that anybody says. And I'm like, who are you listening to? Because they're literally telling you everything you need to know, and you're just not paying attention. Like, who are you listening to?
Apparently they're listening to the fucking montage. Apparently they're only listening to those stupid fucking headlines where everybody is saying things that are like true and not true and all like they're apparently listening to the montage of newscasting because it's the only thing anyone seems to freaking remember about this film. They're like, well, they said Superman was a god. Like, yes, those are words that were in the movie. Like, the entire narrative doesn't have to support every word that is said in the entire movie. Like, what are you smoking? Like, I don't understand. It's just...
I don't know if everyone saw that, but in behind-the-scenes footage there is also a moment from the cornfield scene where Clark extends his hand to Lois while she's approaching him, and a Tumblr user by the name Two Quick Deaths pointed out how in Man of Steel it was Lois who extended her hand to Clark, and this time it was Clark who extended his hand to her. Like, in Man of Steel, Clark needed Lois, and this time, after he was gone, Lois needed him, and he extends his hand to her, like, I'm here now. And
which is so beautiful because it was his turn. Exactly. And that's the thing. It was his turn. Like, she'd been doing all this supporting, and it was time for Lois to have her grief moment, to have her emotional arc, to really, like, get to feel those emotions and work through what happened to her in terms of losing, you know, in a moment, their entire future, and having to act like that loss was real. It doesn't matter how back to life he is. It's a real loss, and had they dealt with that, it would have been a perfect solution to their arc, because it would have been him coming in and offering support where she's offered support so many times before.
Exactly.
And it would have been perfectly balanced.
Perfectly balanced. And that's the beauty of it, is that in the first one, he felt alone, so she reached for his hand. And in this one, she had been feeling alone for how long? And he reached for hers. And I'm like, oh, these two are so beautiful. Why are you taking this from me and giving me Izzy? And you smell good. And I hate
this might be like reaching a little bit, but when she reached for his hand, they were like in a desert. And this time they're in like a field, so like, I don't know. I might be reaching or whatever.
I will take it. High five. That's awesome. Yeah, I got really excited at first because when I watched it, I didn't catch it quite fast enough, and I thought she reached first, and I was like, oh, that's a great callback. And then Two Quick Deaths was like, no, he reached first and gifted, and I was like, oh my god, and then I freaked out. So it was just, it's so beautiful. So beautiful, man.
This whole thing means you realize that they robbed us of the conclusion of probably one of the best love stories in superhero genre. Like,
exactly. And oh yeah, they robbed us of what could have been the most epic conclusion to so many things, and the start of so much more wonderfulness. Like, you know, is anybody gonna bring up the storyboard about the Doomsday Vision and, you know, that kind of thing? I mean, let's talk about that for a minute, because I about cried. I honestly felt lost, and it was like, I just want to kill people now. I was going to get stuff done that day, and I got up and saw that and was like, I don't think I'm going to get anything done. I'm going to sit down and watch TV and curl into a ball and eat food. So, you know, and that's what I did. So,
well, so many of these movements, so many of the cuts that they made are clearly movements to cut Superman, for all intents and purposes, from the future of this franchise. And I think that's really what their agenda is. They're saying, like, yeah, is there a future for this universe? No, we need to make sure that we absolutely do not allude to anything that might happen in the future, and put a very, very secure button on it. And that's the reason that there's no Kiersey. That's the reason that there's no proposal. That's the reason that there's no Darkseid. That's the reason that all of those things were cut, is basically to rob the DCEU of its future, so that from here on out, executives can dictate what that future looks like and hold the lack of accountability to story over every actor's head. They can look at that actor and say, we don't need you anymore. We can do this without you. And that's what they wanted. They wanted that specific leverage.
You're right.
It's exactly the
evil.
It is so
so
wrong.
evil.
It is so wrong. And we could have had such amazing things, you guys. Like, that just broke my heart. We could have had, like, do you remember the little gibbets that we were getting afterward? Real? Talking about how Cyborg actually was getting flashes of possible futures and stuff like that. I keep wondering if that's what that storyboard was. It's him flashing on that, or and then they showed the storyboard of Doomsday, and then the cube exploding, and then or the mother box, and then somebody was like, oh wait, that was in the first trailer, and found that clip and put it in, and it was like, what? Oh no, we could have had the most amazing thing, and to end that film on the Vision, or even anything that ties back into the Nightmare, into Bruce's original fears, and then ties in to Justice League headquarters being demolished, and that's actually where he's been living, oh my God, my head exploded. It was like, what an amazing, incredible premise. We could have leaped into Justice League 2 and gone incredible directions. We could have had the most amazing film franchise. And they looked at it, decided it was lacking for whatever reason, and just completely and totally cut it out. And it just, I need to curl up and eat food again and watch TV because I'm heartbroken all over again. I cannot believe that they would make such a choice. What a stupid thing. I cannot, I didn't know stupidity was that anybody could be that dumb.
It's like they willfully want to make mediocre films. They don't want to have a direction. They don't want to have goals. They just want to make mediocre films. And it's like, why would you want that?
Marvel gets away with it, so why should they be any different?
If they lower the bar, they lower the quality of fans, they lower the budget of the films, they lower a lot of things that they don't necessarily want to be high. That's the thing. So if they lower the bar on this franchise, there is a way to profit off of it. And there is a way to profit off these movies that keep failing. Like they might find a way to do it. It's just that it's the most corrupt way they could possibly do this. And it shows exactly who they are. It shows exactly what they're about. And it shows that they have zero integrity. And that's, that's where we stand. Where we stand is on the field of zero integrity. Like, I have more respect for a lot of people working in the MCU right now than I do for anyone who's making the big decisions at Warner Brothers. Because right now, at least the MCU has creative control, and at least they let their directors make weird and interesting projects. Ragnarok was, for as much as Ragnarok hurt my feelings, it was a fairly good movie, and it was definitely a film by is it Waititi?
Yeah, Taika Waititi.
Yes. Yes. It was definitely a film that was his vision. It was definitely him. Like, his mark was all over that film. Like it was definitely the Thor film he wanted to make. And for better or worse, he got to make that film under the MCU banner. He got to do what he wanted to do. That puts them ahead of Warner Brothers right now, in my opinion. Maybe James Wan will get away with what he wants to do, but I'm not holding my breath. The editing room is a treacherous place. I think that he'll be lucky if he gets what he wants in the can, at least. But after that point, we'll see.
Yeah.
But
so wrong.
If they wanted to catch up, and they ended up lapping the MCU in corruption, and that's really, really, I thought that would be hard to do. But I guess it was super easy.
It's just amazingly heartbreaking. It could have been so incredible, so groundbreaking, and just so cool. And I agree. Just the whole lowering of that bar. Did anybody see the comparison that Fiona chick did between the Fountainhead and Zack? It's no wonder he wants to do the Fountainhead. I've never read the book, but just the clip from the old film that they did of it, where they were like, "We like your building. It's nice. It's new. It's amazing. It's so innovative, but it doesn't really." Some people aren't happy. It makes others uncomfortable. We don't really like it. So here's what we want you to do. We'll keep your building, but we're going to change it like this. And they slap a classical facade on the front. And see, now it's more mainstream. It's more middle of the road. It makes everybody happy. And he's like, that's not the building I made. That's not mine. You know, that is not what I wanted to do. And they're like, yeah, but so you can see how this works better for all of us. And he's like, it doesn't work better for me. That's not my building. You know, and they're like, well, you either take it or you leave it. And he's like, I leave it because that is not what I stood here, you know, came in to make. See, doesn't it make sense? And we're all like, oh my gosh, this is way too close to the truth. It's no wonder he wants to make a film about it, you know. And it is just, it breaks my heart that it always comes down to money, you know, that it always comes down to that freaking almighty dollar, the bottom line, that everybody's gotta make sure that they squeeze the every last penny out of everything, and they can't possibly go, you know what? We just want to do good art. I just...
Well, not just money, but greed. Like, the thing is that, like, it's not like the DCEU wasn't making big money. The DCEU is making loads of money. Big money. Like, it was making...
more in Batman v Superman than they ever did with this dog shit pile.
Exactly, man. Absolutely. I can't believe that. It made 200 million.
It was running at pace with MCU films and exceeding them in most ways. It's just that they were comparing them to the wrong MCU films. You can't compare Batman versus Superman to the Avengers. You just can't. You can compare it to the Winter Soldier. You can compare it to Ragnarok. You can compare it to those because those are, you know, flagship, you know, properties with two big stars in them. That's it. That's if you have two Avengers in the same movie, if you have two Justice League members in the same movie, that's the same thing, and you should expect the same amount of money. And like they had a number in mind of what Batman vs Superman that was going to make that was fucking bonkers. And the idea that the movie was ever going to make that, controversy or no, was ridiculous. And honestly, like, just that it was all about greed. It was like, well, how can we get Justice League to make twice as much money as Batman vs Superman? The answer was not ever in your wildest dreams. Like, that's the thing. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. Like, you maybe had a chance if you had left this project alone of Justice League cracking $1 billion.
Yep.
You maybe had a chance. But honestly, it's not the first team-up movie. It's over. That moment has passed.
Exactly.
And you guys need to grow up. Yeah, you guys need to grow up and say you can't break ground in every single arena. You did the first, you know, female-led comic book movie in a cinematic franchise, and that was a great milestone, and it made you shitloads of money because it was a milestone. Do you know that Captain Marvel is not going to perform at that level? It's just not going to, because it's not the first
that milestone
one.
Has been made. Yep, you're right.
It's finished, and the thing is that if they just looked at that and said, okay, the moment that the Avengers happened has passed. It's in the past. It may not ever happen again. We need to get as close to $1 billion as humanly possible. That would have been a reasonable assumption to make, and they wouldn't have been shooting for the moon and ending up in a garbage dump.
Yep.
Because that's what happened.
Yeah. Well, and if they had, I feel like I agree. They were never going to get to that kind of of heights and stuff like that. But I really feel like if they'd stayed the course, if they would allow this to progress the way Zach was laying it out and stuff like that, I feel like over time it matures very well. You know, we're still talking about these movies so much later, and to watch Zach to build them together and put them together nicely and see it come to fruition is truly a beautiful thing. And so I really think if they had just stayed the course and let Zach finish Justice League the way he wanted to, maybe even done Justice League 2, you know, like if they just allowed it to go forth, they still would have been making lots of money. You're right, not the $1 billion that they wanted to, but they were making good money. And I think over time, even now, people are suddenly like, oh, wait a moment, I do think that Zach had a point to all this. Yeah, you think? You know, but it's like, I think over time, people would have been like, oh, well, I kind of see what they're doing now.
I do think
not everybody. Some haters would have always hated him, you know, and that's okay. That's just the way it is. But I do think that some would have come around had they had long enough to actually see the progression and go, oh, I see what they were doing from the very start. I just didn't understand it back then, you know. Sorry, go ahead.
I do think if Justice League had gone forward as planned and not been messed with and not been marred by controversy and all of that stuff, I think it would have easily outperformed Batman versus Superman. I just think
Agreed.
it would have.
I agree.
Because like you're basically taking Batman versus Superman's money and adding the lure of that Wonder Woman money. And you know, if it hadn't been a sexist piece of shit, and if it hadn't treated Diana like crap instead of one of the biggest moneymakers in the franchise, which is what they should have recognized her as from the get-go, then we would have had that Wonder Woman money. We would have had those Wonder Woman supporters. All those people would have come to this movie as well. And
to see her.
Basically, what you're doing is just hamstringing your whole entire movie before you even begin. And you would have easily outperformed Batman versus Superman. It would have been fine. It wouldn't have been $1 billion probably, but it might have gotten really close. And that should have been enough. And it's not. That's the problem.
It should have been enough. Yep, and I agree. It frustrates me so much. And on top of that, like, sorry, I'm just shifting off, but you're right. It bothered me so much how they changed Diana. Suddenly she's just the sexy woman. You know, you remember the first trailer how, you know, they're talking about the others, and you know, and she's like, what about Arthur Curry? And he's like, more or less, you know. And she looks at him and goes, more or less, you know. He said
that stuff was so great.
That was so awesome, and they were working together as partners. There was none of that sexy by-play. We're gonna, you know, well, we're a man and we're a woman, so we have to be interested in each other. It's just we're two, you know, comrades working together to get this done. You know what I mean? And we're both very intelligent and have great respect for each other. I just don't see why that's a problem. I wanted to see that kind of relationship between Bruce and Diana. That's what I was there for.
I totally agree with you.
The minute they started into all the little flirting and, you know, he leans over the rail even after, you know, she's like, oh, yeah, well, it did look expensive when I got past all your security. And he leans over the rail and goes, hi. And I'm like, oh, God.
Actually,
they're going to start flirting with each other.
I think that part was Zach, actually. My thing is, at least, I think Zach, Zach's like, I think it's kind of been established from BVS that Bruce does kind of have a crush on Diana. The question is, how is the filmmaker gonna display her reaction to that? You know what I mean? Because already in BVS, he was like, "Oh my gosh, wow!" But you know,
always,
like her,
nice-looking woman, exactly. And I have no problem with his playboyism coming out like that in terms of, whoa, you know, she looks hot. Because if she didn't, he wouldn't be Bruce Wayne. But at the same time, it just came down to, let's argue about your dead boyfriend and let's make sure to, you know, everything
that
about their relationship has to be tempered by, because it is not two people working together. It is a man and a woman, and therefore they have to flirt. And I hate that.
Yeah, that attraction has to be tempered by respect, in terms of even if you're shipping Wonderbat, which I think, you know,
I hate.
Whatever.
I ship it, actually.
I didn't mind it in BVS. It was like, oh, that's kind of cute. And then seeing them work together, I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. I don't expect to see sexy scenes where she's putting his shoulder back in and they're, you know.
That scene, I think it's very hard these days to be a Wonderbat shipper after
just weird.
After everything that happened in the comics just recently.
Oh, God.
Now, it just feels like Wonder Woman is what they throw at male heroes, and it's just. It's getting very, very tiring. It's getting very, very like, oh, well, why can't Diana just have a love interest that's like her love interest?
Yeah.
Why can't she have a Selena Kyle or a Lois Lane?
Why can't love interest?
Why does she have to hook up with some dude who can, you know, who has a chance of pinning her or something? Like, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares whether or not.
But you're right. That's
your boyfriend
toxic masculinity at play, you know. So.
And that's what, like, honestly, when that scene started. Of, you know, Bruce, like, undressing and she walks in, I'm like, fucking no.
Yeah, I
know. Like, no.
He thought he was being so cute, too. He was like, oh, look, it's the sexy girls accidentally undressing in a room scene reversed. And I was like, it's not cute. It's not cute. It's not
I didn't even mind that they pointed out that Bruce
was,
had extra bruising. That doesn't bother me. Because that's just kind of... That's not a bad realization to go, oh yeah, he is mortal, you know? And I see nothing wrong with that. It's just that, see, some of the dialogue, again, it so smacks of Joss just because of the way it's framed. Chris Terrio had very, very sophisticated is the word I'm looking for, dialogue in BVS, and you can just tell that that's not his when Bruce says, I was willing to make the trade. That isn't Chris Terrio. That is Joss Whedon. That is so Joss Whedon with that casual, kind of slightly, sarcastic.
Everything is almost a one-liner.
Quippy, that is what that is. And the minute I started getting stuff like that, it was like, where's my bucket? And anyway, I'm on a soapbox. Look, I'm on a rampage. I'm sorry, I'll sit down. But it really did anger me very much because I really wanted the relationship between the two of them that had the respect in terms of, more or less, more or less, he said no. She knew he said no. She knew dang well the minute Bruce said more or less that something wasn't kosher, and I loved it. How all she did was pin him with a look and go, okay, which one is it really? And he's like, yeah, I didn't go with it. That's awesome. What kind of great stuff is that? But instead, we got to throw some sexiness in there and be sure to bring up Steve Trevor every second. That is, again, as far as I'm concerned, one of the marks of an immature writer, because they're like, oh, let's find this person's tragedy and be sure to flog them with it in order to get some emotional manipulation out of the audience. You know what? You can do that in much more subtle ways than that. We all got the picture when Superman died in BVS and she had that look on her face and we all went, oh no, she's done this before. She did it with Trevor. We knew he was toast before that film came out. It was very obvious and nobody said a word. Nobody flogged anything. It was very nicely just put out there. And some people picked up on it and others didn't. And here they're like, wait, where's the board marked Steve Trevor? Oh, there it is. Bam, 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 bam. Did you get it? Did you get enough pain? Did you get it? It's just, it kills me that people look at these films and go, well, they just beat you over the head with it. Really? Really? Have you seen some of the other crap out there? And this is just the perfect example. Oh, I'm back up here again. I'm sorry. I'll sit down. I'm very upset. Anyway, it just.
I'm sorry to anyone who does ship Wonderbat, but I've never seen it. I don't understand it. I've seen the animated series, and I still don't agree. And I'm sorry, Rebecca, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I know that you like it, and I'm sorry if that really bothers you, but I just don't.
I liked it in the first movie up until this movie, and then it kind of soured. But I have no comic experience, so that doesn't really help. Sorry, But Rebecca, I get you there, I do.
That's why, I kind of with you.
Anyway, guys, I kind of have to leave. It was really nice speaking to you guys today.
We're dropping in to our marathon.
Yeah.
It was nice having you in. Thank you for coming in.
Podcast, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Next time.
That's what I was about to say. Is that that's how she feels about Wonder Woman. That's how I feel anytime a story is written in DC, whether it's Kingdom Come or Injustice, where just because Lois Lane, so they kill Lois Lane, and now's our chance for Superman and Wonder Woman together because they're pretty much the same characters, right? Yeah, you want the two hot godlike powers to bang and make super babies, right? You're
right. That's creepy. I don't like it. Nope.
That's why, I was so frustrated with Injustice 2. Because, in terms of, Wonder Woman, anyway. Because in 2017, you got the amazing film by Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot did an amazing job. And within, a month of each other, you get, hands down, the worst interpretation of Wonder Woman that's ever come out. In my opinion.
That's awesome.
And it's just, the way they treat her, she's just, not Wonder Woman at all. And just, excuse my language, but she's just all up on Superman's dick, and I'm just who is this character that they're trying to force us in believing is Wonder Woman? Because this is not Wonder Woman. I mean, first of all, that's not even Superman anyway, so I refuse to acknowledge that.
Over and over and over again, it's just history repeating itself, because this Tom King arc with where he teased Wonderbat shippers is just fully ripped from a comic before it. Is fully ripped from a comic, and they just basically inserted Batman where Superman was. And that's the kind of stuff that really, really bothers me, because why is she for this? What way would Wonder Woman, who the thing about her is an advocate for ladies, her entire thing is supposed to be women centric, and you have her basically being the other woman in both of these situations, in the exactly identical situations, which is basically just like, well, this is what we use Wonder Woman for. She's the gauntlet that men have to pass through on their way to their marriage. And literally on the way to their fucking marriage. What is wrong with you guys? She would never make a pass. She would never. I'm sorry. She would just never make a pass under those circumstances. When Bruce isn't hooked up, I think the relationship is kind of cute, and I think that it's interesting, and I really liked it in JLU. I really liked it in the DCEU version. I thought it was cute. But the way that we're using it now makes it so that I think it's just so dangerous to have those ships with Wonder Woman. It's almost like Steve Trevor or nothing. It's almost like the only thing that I trust dudes to write in these comic books, and that's half the problem, is that we never get women writing Wonder Woman anymore because God forbid. That's all I trust them to do. That's all I only trust them to write her with Steve, because at least they understand the power dynamic with her and Steve. At least they sort of understand that. And that's the problem, is that these ships become hazardous. I used to think that that Super Wonder was an interesting premise for many, many years in the future. Why not? Doesn't matter to me a whole lot, he's married to a mortal woman. That makes sense. But, it's so unfair to Diana at the end of the day. And honestly, no one can write it in a way that's fair to her. No one can write it in a way that feels organic and doesn't twist her into someone she's not. There's no reason she has to be on her knees in front of Superman. There's no reason she should ever be on her knees in front of Superman. There's never a reason. And it's bullshit for them to try and twist that kind of stuff. It's just another way to debase the character, and I think that sucks, because we should be able to ship whatever we want to ship, and it shouldn't be hazardous, and it should be these ships should get support without people necessarily being fuck this female character, and it doesn't happen that way. That's just not the way that the ships exist, and it's shitty, because I believe in shipping everything, and then it gets to a point where, the emotions associated with those ships end up kind of ruining them for you, I think.
With me, I know some other, people who ship Wonderbat, we were looking forward to, having some cute moments between them in Justice League, but the thing is, we wanted it to be organic, how Zack does organic. You know how Zack had, the chemistry between them, him saying something stupid and her being LOL, you think you're so smart, don't you? That kind of thing. We wanted the naturalness of it,
that chemistry was great.
And it's
that was great chemistry.
Then, we wanted it naturally, but then Joss comes in and he doesn't know what subtlety is.
No, he doesn't.
And, it kind of makes it impossible for us to enjoy the moments. Because it's this is Zack Snyder, Batman and Wonder Woman. I would want the Zack Snyder version of their relationship. I don't want Joss Whedon to come in and write scenes for them, because Joss, like I said, he doesn't know how to do anything with respect, so it's
I mean, just look at how we treated fucking Black Widow and Hulk in Avengers Age of Ultron. I mean, that to me just shows
God.
That was so sad. What on earth was that? What are you doing? I'm not saying I'm opposed to them having a relationship. It's just the way he handled it was it was awful. It made me cover my eyes.
And again, about him being a one-trick pony, he did the same thing of the Flash landing on Wonder Woman's boobs with Hulk and her.
I know! It was did you honestly think that people aren't going to put two and two together? You're just exposing yourself as a one-trick pony hack. Come on. I mean, yeah, apparently it's superheroes, right? So it's all good. It's good. That's why what frustrated me is that it felt like I could lift the dialogue off of Justice League and just lay it over Avengers and it fits.
Half the stuff in there you can pull from Buffy and Angel too. If you have the history with Whedon, you can pull half of the tricks he pulls are I can literally watch Justice League and be oh, they're being Buffy now. Oh, there's Angel. Oh, there's Wesley.
Yep, I totally believe you. And that's just so sad. So sad.
Funny, you just say Wesley, my cat sitting next to me, and his name was Wesley, and he just turned around because he's like, what?
I'm just minding my own business, Nick.
I'm sorry, bud.
I'm not talking any shit, Wesley, I promise.
I know, you're good, Wesley, you're good. It's so frustrating, I guess. Yeah?
Oh, sorry. Can I ask you guys something? Because, I just kind of need to ask about this, because there's this thing going around now, because this one reporter or whatever said that Warner Brothers used Zack Snyder's, they fired him. He didn't leave of his own accord, they fired him. And that doesn't sit with me. That doesn't sit well with me, because I'm like, Zack decided to leave because he needed to mourn. I don't like this kind of... maybe it's true, I don't know anything, but personally for me, I don't really believe that, because it's Zack needed to mourn, so he took the time to mourn. Why does it have to be some sort of thing of Warner Brothers firing him and him leaving and then lying to us that that's why he's leaving?
I do think that we have been lied to. I do think that we've been lied to at great length. But I think
not by Zack. Do you think by Zack? Because I thought he was mourning and that was it. I didn't think that Warner Brothers fired him and then told him, lie to them about why you're leaving.
I think half of what Zack tells us has been true.
Yes.
I think about half of it has been true,
and I think that
he adheres to the truth as far as he possibly can
about the
within
fact
legal
that they
parameters.
Did bring in and I agree. I think it was true. I don't know. I think there's way more going on than we know. Of course, people want to jump on the he was fired rhetoric and stuff like that, but there have been stuff coming together timing-wise. It doesn't exactly come together just right, and so I don't want to say that, but I will say it's entirely possible that what Danielle says is that, I agree, he was grieving, he was suffering, he came back and tried to work through it and was just going to push through until it was over and then take a break, but I don't think that it was his idea to bring on Joss. I think they brought in Joss. I think they were pushing. I think they had already, had since day one of Justice League been in his business and in his kitchen trying to change the formula and stuff. And he pushed back as long as he could. And I do think it's entirely possible he just went, I'm out. I am so out. I can't do this right now. If I were him, I would have had a nervous breakdown somewhere on that, in that editing room and just completely lost it and been like, I have to walk away, But either way, I do think that he left. And I think he turned to us and gave us the kindest version of it. But he never straight up said, I brought on Joss to replace, the studio said that. I think the studio straight up lied to us about a lot of crap. But
I understand why, but I think that he's been lying to us I think he definitely did lie when he told us why the Batman versus Superman cuts happened. And I've been kind of holding on to that, saying... I've been holding on to that as an example and saying, here's the thing.
What did he say about the Batman v Superman cuts?
He's giving us the kindest version.
He said the reason that they cut things, he said that the reason that they extended the Ultimate Edition needed to exist was because they made some cuts for the ratings, and that the only thing that they cut, he said we just removed some violence, which then you get the Unlimited Edition, and you look at it, and basically you realize that none of that is true. It's just the cuts don't add up.
But yeah, they cut out.
There's some nudity that gets cut.
Lois,
but there's no violence that gets cut. There's next to no violence.
They just add some blood.
All the fight scenes were extended with more gore and more violence, and the woman got thrown under the train. So again, kind of true, but not all the way. He's giving us the kindest version, and I agree, as best he can within legal parameters, and in order not to torpedo his career.
But him doing that made me hold on to the idea that, Zack is allowed to say some stuff, and he's not allowed to say other things. Yeah. And I think that I recognize that a lot of what he's saying to us is half-truths, and a lot of that is legal. A lot of that has to do with whatever his contract says, whatever he's been told he can do and can't do within those parameters. But I've held on to that since then, and since then I've always listened to him with sort of like, okay, what is what you're supposed to say and what is what you actually mean. I think the actors have a lot more room to shoot off their mouths, for lack of a better term, about the way the studio's interfering or whatever. I think eventually Ben Affleck is going to go absolutely crazy.
I think eventually he's going to pop.
Rip them
I
into
agree.
tiny shreds.
Yeah,
I think at
wait
some
for
point in his career,
this, like 10 years later, you know.
It'll be great. It'll be great.
I agree.
We will all be like, you know, we'll throw a party. We'll buy a cake we'll write Ben Affleck on it, and we'll just, you know, like how savage he is, and it'll be fantastic. But I think that, you know, I keep that in mind, and I sort of think, like, I don't know that he was necessary. I think that the idea that he was fired at the beginning of Justice League is stupid, because obviously he was working just fine. Everything was great. We have loads of behind the scenes footage of him on set.
Oh, yeah.
But the idea that his creative control was maybe relinquished in big chunks along the way seems very viable to me, because you know, Justice League went from 2 movies to 1 movie
almost instantly,
and then
it was like, what happened? You know,
and not even just like not having control in the editing room about what the theatrical cut looked like, and the stuff that was cut that didn't really align with what he wanted the movie to be about, and just a lot of the stuff that has been happening has sort of shown that he doesn't necessarily have the creative control he had at the beginning of the franchise. The creative control that he has always said, too, that he has. That he says Warner Brothers is very hands-off. Warner Brothers is going to let us do what we need to do. You know, it's about directors. It's about their vision. All of that stuff is not necessarily the way that things are being run at Warner Brothers, and hasn't been for some time. I think the idea that he was fired straight up might be hyperbole, but I don't think that it's too far off of the realm of what actually probably happened.
Well, you have to wonder if it was fired versus pushed out, and if pushed out means that they are trying to get you to leave. So you're not fired,
all they had to do was keep raising the bar.
But you're pushed out because they make it so unbearable, you finally go, you know what, I'm out, and then you leave on your own, and then they go, well, I didn't fire them, but, you know, you made it everything in your ability to make them as uncomfortable as possible until they finally cracked and decided they were done, which in his case, in his mourning and his grief, would have been a lot easier than any other time period of his life, you know. And so I agree, again, it's not, you know, I'm not saying that, I don't know, they can always say, well, he wasn't fired, but that doesn't mean that they weren't desperately trying to get rid of him so they could change this movie to be what they wanted it to be.
I also think some of the stuff that made it into the movie that he clearly shot is stuff that looked like it was a consent, like it was him trying to meet them halfway, like that moment in the prison when Barry draws the glasses on that guy. That was a Zack Snyder moment, but it just felt tampered with. It felt sort of like...
It didn't feel like Zack Snyder moment,
It didn't feel like his instinct. It felt like something he would come up with given direction, saying like, you need to make something funny happen.
Give us the funny. And he's like, okay, you know, how about this? How about this? You know? And
it felt like him meeting them halfway, and I think that a lot of the costume decisions, especially in terms of Superman, were him meeting them halfway, and I think they just kept raising the bar on how ridiculous and silly this movie had to be, until it was kind of like, what can I do? You know, what can I do that's inside the vision that I have for these characters? What can I do that's true to them, that actually makes any sense at all anymore? What you're asking for is a different movie than the one I'm making. And at that point, it may have been just a conversation with someone where they were like, well, what we want is a different movie from what you've been making. And he was like, okay. And that conversation is the same as being fired, in my opinion. But it's not technically being fired. It's technically him quitting.
Yep.
So
I think there's so much going on behind the scenes, and I think it was a whole big mess. And I feel for him, because I think from day one, from the moment Batman v Superman came out, you know, to the controversy and reviews and crap that it did, I think from that very moment, Zack has been fighting to continue his vision ever since. You know, and it's been like trying to keep the tide back, and so yeah, it doesn't. I have great respect for him that he lasted as long as he did, because he did come back after Autumn died and try to keep going and finish the filming, and you know what I mean. Like he gave it his all, and I don't know that I would have done anything but just collapse into a heap and never move again after that. I don't guarantee I would have been able to make it back and at least finish the filming. So yeah, he gave it his all. So he's got my respect.
Well, that's
he
what,
really
like,
does.
it's like looking at this whole situation, and then to me, there's a bit of a comparison to like what happened with like Disney's like a Han Solo movie that they did, where they shot the entire movie and then they fired the directors because their visions weren't aligning or whatever. And now, like Ron Howard came in and like literally reshot the whole movie, and now he's given director credit. So, like looking at that situation, like even though I wanted Zack to complete his vision, if Warner Brothers was gonna do this anyway and make it the movie they wanted and not Zack, like just give Joss Whedon the credit, because that way you're not letting fans down. Because that way we're like, okay, well we know this is gonna be Joss's and not Zack's, and you know that going in. So that way we aren't expecting a Zack's movie, because we've been lied to for like 6-7 months.
They lied so hard. I mean, wow, they lied. You know? And you're right, it's not Zack's film. I felt that the moment I watched it. I came out and told some random usher that. The poor guy. I'm like, what the frick was that? And he's like, huh? And I'm like, that is not Zack's film, you know? And he's like, I'm like, that is not the Justice League I was promised. That is not Zack's film. And I stomped away, and he's like, okay, you know, I mean, the poor guy had no idea.
What baffles me is that they could have put Joss's name on any kind of shit, and I think they would have made more money. Like, that's what's really crazy to me, is that they put Zack's name on this film, even though the majority of the content isn't Zack's. When his name on the film is what hurts the box office. It hurts the reviews anyway, which in turn hurt the box office. And I think Justice League would have gotten really good reviews, no matter what piece of garbage it was, if it was reputed as a Joss Whedon film. Like, I don't even understand why Zack's name is still on it, considering, I don't know, maybe it's a legality, maybe it's like like he did, like, you know, a certain amount of the film, so he's allowed to have he needs to have his name on it, according to, like, you know.
There would have been PR hell to pay.
But
there would have been PR hell to pay if they had taken his name, because you remember the haters on, at least on Tumblr anyway, saying like, oh, they're gonna credit Whedon, and we were like, no, they're not, and we were like going back and forth. Can you imagine if they had taken Zack's name off of it? We would have lost our freaking mind.
The thing, though, is that they were trashing us anyway, so why does it matter? That's what
they wanted to get our butt paying for that first ticket to sit down. They lied to us straight up into opening night because they wanted our butts in the seats and our money in the bank, and that's all it comes down to, as far as I'm concerned. You know, they didn't want to lose either side of the problem. Yeah. They didn't want to lose Zack's followers, but they didn't want to lose Joss's followers, and so, you know, they tried to play both sides and they lost. And the very petty side of me is like, good, you deserve it.
Well, the misunderstanding that they have to choose, like the misunderstanding that they get one audience or they get the other, they don't get both. Mm-hmm. That misunderstanding is so crazy. Like this idea that they could just, this is just like, I just want to, like, I don't even teach marketing. I don't teach it, but I do understand the basic problem of the fact that the market gets split when there's this much product in it, and the fact that Marvel has such a big chunk of the market now means you're going to make less money overall. Everyone is going to make less money. MCU movies have been taking a financial hit too, but nobody talks about that. Having more players in the game splits the market. It's the literal reality of the economy of this
economics class, man.
Like, it's not that hard. Right. And this is the thing. This is people who it is their job to know more than me about this. And I know, like, that's the thing. It's like they can't even come up with the basic marketing strategy, which is growing up, putting on your big boy pants, and realizing that you're not going to get 100% of the market anymore. You cannot have it. It's split.
And that's the thing. People are gonna... like that's like a fantastic point to bring up, because like for me, like for the longest time, I was fans of both. Like, when it was just, like, the Dark Knight movies and the MCU, I went to both, and I loved them both at the time.
Yeah.
But now that I've become more... And since the DCEU has really exploded, I almost never see a Marvel movie in theaters anymore. They've lost my money.
Yep.
And it's a bit of, like, my preference to the DCEU as well as the quality of the movies. But it's just, like, you're right. In that, like, because now that the DCEU has been happening, I don't feel the need to go see Marvel movies really anymore.
Before the DCEU, I saw every single comic book movie that existed.
Yeah,
Before the DCEU, I saw everything that came out. Now, I see DC movies and Marvel movies if I have time and extra money. It's absolutely what happens. People have limited resources. They're going to split their attention. And you're going to get one half of the market, or you're going to get the other, but you're not going to get 100% saturation anymore. You're just not. There's too many films.
I just can't believe that they actually thought playing both sides like that was a good idea. I can't believe they thought that lying straight up about it being Zack's vision that whole time was a good idea. I agree. It's like they have to commit to one or the other. Sooner or later, you're going to be found out. It's either a Zack movie or a Joss movie, and it really kind of speaks to their lack of respect for the viewer, because I guess they thought that we'd watch it and just... the Joss supporters would decide it was Joss's movie, and the Zack supporter would decide it was Zack's movie, and then we just all pay for it. When you could not find two more different directors. If you're gonna play that game, you got to make sure to get two that are actually a little bit close in their styles. I mean, these are so radically different that you could not possibly look at it and go, oh yeah, that's all Zack Snyder. Or you couldn't look at it and go, oh yeah, that's all Joss. You can't. It's a product of both of them now, and it's a Frankenstein monster because everybody and their dog has been in it messing around. And it just, I can't believe they thought that was a good idea. What's wrong with you guys?
It's the fox and the grapes. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the fox and the grapes. They had one perfectly fine bunch of grapes in their mouth, and everything was great. They had grapes. That's awesome. They should have been happy they had grapes in the first place. And then they looked over and they saw someone else with some other bunch of grapes. They went for both of them and they lost both of them. That's basically, like, it's just, I mean, like, it's so elementary that it makes me want to, like, go over there and hit them all over the head with a giant big pile of scripts. Like, it just makes me want to bludgeon them, because I just cannot understand how you can't get the basic economics of this. Like, you either have you had something, and, like, you should have been afraid of losing it, and now you have.
They had something beautiful. It hurts me to see it end like this. And honestly, if they had just finished Justice League Zack's way and released it, and then given us a director cut later or whatever, done their usual thing, and then decided to course correct and do whatever they want and break into funniness, I would have at least been able to accept it better. And I probably would have supported them longer, because it would have been like, thank you. Exactly. You gave me the trilogy that I love so much. That's all I needed. That's all I wanted. I will stand by Phase 1 forever, right up to Justice League. I can't stand by Justice League. I don't even reblog the crap that has Joss's crap on it, because I just can't do it, It just, so yeah, if you see minimal Justice League stuff getting reblogged from me, it's because I only do the stuff I know dang well is Zack's. Otherwise, I refuse to. If it's got that crappy dialogue or those awful reshoots in it, it won't go, because it just, I can't. I absolutely can't do it. I can't even watch that film anymore. Like, I saw it with the kids in the theater, and that is it. I haven't been back since. I don't even want to buy the thing, because it breaks my heart to even think about the crap I'm getting instead of what I should have had. So yeah, they screwed the pooch hardcore. They really did. Yep. And I agree. If they were gonna, do anything, they just should have flashpointed it and gone crazy. And then, I would have been annoyed that came true. But at the very least, I still would have had, Zack's films. So.
Yeah, and that's what just like. One thing that was really frustrating, like last week when, like, the first bit of the deleted scene was released online. Like, I remember, I don't know why I did. I was watching the fucking Collider people reacting to it, but at the end of it, they're like,
"Don't watch those idiots."
Yeah,
I've never watched Collider. Why do you subject yourself to this?
I don't know why. I can't explain it. And I was watching it. At the end, there were like. One of the people was like, I think that was Zack, and the girl was like, oh, no, I'm pretty sure that's Joss. I'm like, How the fuck can you think that is Joss Whedon? Like,
You're
as
so
a
stupid,
film
man.
fan, as a film fan, how can you fucking think that that was Joss Whedon?
Exactly. There's not a funny line. He's not grinning. There's not that moment of, oh, it's been quiet too long, or it's been serious too long. I gotta chuck something uplifting in there, or something quirky in there. Oh my gosh, everything about it was so Man of Steel. It wasn't even funny. Yeah, we know who that is. Oh my gosh. That's just embarrassing. That is so embarrassing. Wow. But okay. I don't understand how people can't, I don't know, define it. You're right. It's real obvious. It's real clear.
And that's why, like, I don't know how Warner Brothers thought that we wouldn't be able to tell the difference either. Like Josh just shoots ugly. Like, he just does. He's not a good director.
He shoots TV. You can see his TV background, because he's really, in the end,
he's very close up, and that's the thing, too.
He does
like,
a TV style, and yeah, close-ups, not that too much thought about, what's in the background or anything. Definitely not working on creating an image of any sort or stuff like that, just because he, that's just not what he does, He did pretty good in Avengers, like the one sweeping cut, close-up around everybody and stuff like that was really cool. But see, again, it was close-up. He doesn't ever back up and give you a wide view like Zach does, because it's harder to do in television. So he just doesn't. Anyway, yeah, you're right. But it's ugly.
Like, honestly,
I think it could have been so better if, isn't the cinematographer, his name is Wagner or something? Am I making this up?
Wagner, yeah.
Wagner, yeah.
Wagner, yeah.
He was screwed over big time,
stay the whole time. He had to go and work on other things.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason why it looks the way it does.
Yep. Yeah, he had a different cinematographer altogether. It just... everything about it was a mess. I mean, there should have been so many red flags of maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe we need to stop and think. And then that's the other problem with them rushing. Like, it's so sad because I've always been like, they're not rushing, but I look at it and I realize they really were. Like, Zach was like, he's like got Batman v Superman in the can, and he's already got Justice League scripted and ready to go. They started filming like, what, a week, maybe, after BVS released? Do you know how fast that is? So, again, it's not his fault that he was shooting a movie they now didn't want, because they were like, no, you do these as fast as possible, you get these bad boys out, go, so that he's starting principal photography on the next one, while the other one's still releasing. And so then, it's like, oh my gosh, well, it's bad, it's all so very bad, you gotta change it. I'm filming it, So in the middle of the process, they're now trying to jump in there and change things and work things around. And it's like, dude, it's too late for that. The script has been approved. We're filming what's here. They've done all the prep for it. Like, what? That is not the time to suddenly start shifting around a film. And then, when they either pressured or Zach left or whatever happened, when the principal photography was done and Zach left, then they turned around in that tiny window of time and thought, sure, we can totally redo this entire movie. I'm not saying others haven't done it, but you look at that time period and you go, wow, that is a tall order for anybody, especially in this day and age of needing so much post time for CGI. I don't know what you were thinking. They were rushing so hard to get to the finish line of that $1 billion that they tripped, and now they're just eating crap. It was a bad idea from the very start, and now I get what people say when they say rushing. But see, I always looked at the story before that, and I was like, the story is not rushing. Look at it, taking its time. But then I realized it's not Zach that's rushing. It's not the storyline that's rushing. It's the studio trying desperately to crank these out as fast as possible and get on top in whatever way it takes. And that has been a mistake since years ago, I mean, since the minute they were like, what about if instead of a Man of Steel 2, we do Batman v Superman, and
Batman v Superman was Zach's idea. Like, they were sitting around and talking about.
I know, Zach was like, what if at the end of a film there's a knock on the door of Wayne Manor, and he opens it and there's like a crate of kryptonite, he's thinking as a teaser at the end for a future thing, and they were like,
how
Batman.
He talked about it, like in interviews, he talked about it as if his idea was to do a Dark Knight Returns kind of thing. Like, he
his
made
idea
it
was
sound
the
like
team
that
from
was his
But
whole
the minute
thing.
Batman came up, he never left the table. And then I do think that it was kind of an organic thing in terms of Zack going, well, you know, we could do that. Oh, heck yeah, do that. Do that now. We need Batman. You know, and so, okay, so he did that, and he did it beautifully. But then they already had all the plans in place for everything else, and they're suddenly trying to backtrack now. You know, you've already committed, man. Just finish it.
The thing is that, like, with their movies, like, the movie plan, like, when people say that, like, DC is rushing and, like, they haven't had enough movies, Marvel had, I think, 5 movies before they did Avengers, and, 5 movies including Avengers, and then DC had 4 movies including Justice League, I think.
And that's why I was always
and
like,
so it's like movie-wise, it's like the same, technically, movie-wise, they're about the same amount of time chronologically going, but I guess you're right in terms of, like, how fast they're starting to work on the movies.
How fast it was they were trying to crank them out and get to the superhero team-up. Because that seems to be what they're fixated on, is that, well, Avengers was when everything exploded. Before that, they got, you know, reasonably good reviews and reasonably good return stuff, but none of those were a runaway success of craziness. You know, they were all good, but, like, none of them were, oh my gosh, take over the world. Then Avengers happened, and people freaked out, and it was everywhere, and the money was pouring in, and this, that, and the other, and I honestly think that's what they were going for. And so it wouldn't even surprise me if somebody somewhere along the way goes, okay, well, so we can't just do Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and then leap to Justice League, you know? And Zack's like, what about a Wonder Woman? You know? Well, okay, but see, maybe we need one more other film in the middle of there, you know, because that can't be everywhere at once. Well, okay, Suicide Squad really is the one that sticks out the most because it doesn't contribute anything towards Justice League. I'm fine with the movie, but, like, in the terms of the growth towards the superhero team-up, why is it there?
Why is it there? It needs to be. Like, not everything has to be about the Justice.
So it seems like, okay, we'll just shove this movie in there because it doesn't really apply and it doesn't affect how fast we're trying to accelerate to the team up. You know?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's bad to work, like, that they worked on something other that didn't have anything to do with Justice League, because,
I'm not bothered by
like,
that either.
the DC universe doesn't have to be about Justice League, you know?
Totally agree. I'm just saying that there's some weird things in their progress, and now I can see when people say rushing, I can see how WB might have been rushing. The storyline, I thought, played out lovely. You know, like, if they just left it alone, it would have been a thing of beauty. So I'm sorry, Artyom, go.
What I like about DCEU, in MCU, when Avengers teamed up, they pretty much what they were doing is cleaning up their own mess that they made, at least with Ultron. That's for sure. And DCEU is the entire universe is a reaction to Superman's existence. Everything in DCEU revolves around him. Suicide Squad included. This whole squad was originated because they needed some countermeasures if another Superman merges, and he will not be friendly like the Superman that came before. And Batman v Superman also, the entire movie is a reaction to Man of Steel, pretty much. And Justice League is also a reaction of other heroes to Superman. Like, he emerged, he became a hero, maybe we can too, and form a team actually of superheroes, and and dedicate our cause to what he started.
Yep, no, I agree. This is where you could see Zack very nicely laying it together and making everything come back to Superman. My questioning is simply how fast WB wanted to kind of leap over, you know, get us a Batman and go, you know, versus other things. But I agree. I think everything that came down, like, everything that we got was Zack moving it in play. Look how we all react to the Superman in different ways, you know, the villains and the heroes and the public and everybody else, and, you know, that was such a wonderful thing. That's why to this, you know, till like what, yesterday, when people say, oh, they're rushing, I'd be like, no, they're not, because it came together really nicely. I do blame WB for being so fast on top of things, that they so in a rush to get there and then changing their mind, you know, when they're almost at the finish line. I blame them for that, I do. and I probably will continue to. But I agree, the way the story came together, you know, and Suicide Squad, I have no problem with the way that was handled, especially in terms of, oh, look, now Superman's gone. What do? You know, I loved that. I thought that was wonderful. It was such a lovely way to bring it in, and then to tie it in at the end, if that's how Bruce gets information and starts to go find the other guys, you know, it was perfect lead through. It was beautiful. But I just, it really bothers me that WB was rushing so fast if they weren't truly ready to commit to what they were putting in play. You know, they never should have meddled, as far as I'm concerned. They should have just left it alone, let it finish. They were in a rush to get there. They'd already committed to it. Then after that, you can change it and do what you want.
Mm-hmm. So. Again, that's the whole thing. If they just like left these movies alone, they would have been fine. Like, if you would have left Suicide Squad to be what it was originally intended to be, I think you would end up with more money. I mean, the movie already made a lot of money for it being a non-superpowered, non-necessary, like, didn't have any huge names other than like the Joker in terms of characters, like other than the Joker and Harley Quinn. Like, that movie could have been a lot better if they weren't rushing to try and make that, like, that one. They did the same sort of thing where like they reshot a bunch of it to add more humor, and we're kind of forcing David Ayer to be like, oh, you got to make it more light because people didn't like the dark version of it, and he's like, okay, I guess. So it's yeah. Honestly, at this point,
we saw I love Bright. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion still, but like what he did in Bright was both light and funny and cute and interesting, and also, you know, pretty dark in terms of themes and pretty intense and still very violent, and all of the they don't trust their directors. Like, they all can do what they're setting out to do. They're not making you empty promises here. Like, every single one of the people that they've hired has proven before that they can do what they said they'd do. Like, and, like, they don't have any trust in them either way. Like, they treat all the directors like little kids.
I know.
It's like, they're the ones who act like children, though, to be honest.
I know. Like, it's just... Like, just like examining this whole situation, I just don't know how, as a movie studio, they're gonna move forward. Because are they gonna just continue to just keep churning out these like mediocre versions of these characters and just pretend that like, oh, this was the plan all along, when everyone knows that it's not? It's just, I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping for the best. Like, I'm still, like I said like last week, I'm still excited for like Aquaman and Shazam and Wonder Woman 2, and if we get a Man of Steel 2, I don't know if it's going to be what we want, but, you know, whatever. But I wish, because I think a lot of the problem comes with, especially when people compare Marvel to DC, is that Marvel has its own studio branch outside of Disney. Like, yes, Disney is still very much in control, where, like, but Kevin Feige is more of, like, the head of that, where it's more of his control than necessarily Disney, right? But, like, DC doesn't necessarily have that. DC is under the Warner Brothers banner, and it's a Warner Brothers film, not necessarily a DC film. And that's where a lot of, like, the studio meddling comes in, because it's like, oh, no, we have to please the shareholders. We have to make sure that, like, this movie is as profitable as it can be for Warner Brothers, not DC. You know, so, yeah. Like, it's really frustrating, and I can't defend them anymore. It's just...
I can't either.
Like unless they fucking just own up to their shit and get and put the effort in and maybe actually release a Snyder Cut sometime soon, then maybe I'll be like, you know what, you guys listen somewhat, and I'll give you one more chance, but I'm not gonna be fully trusting. I'm gonna watch cautiously to what you do next. Oh, yeah. But right now it looks like they're still not even able to do that. They're like, this whole release of Justice League on digital, and they're like, oh, we'll give you a couple of scenes, and they didn't even pull like a Suicide Squad and release it as an extended cut. Because Suicide Squad extended cut didn't change anything in the movie. They just added a few scenes. They didn't even add those to the movie. It's just it's a separate thing on its own. It has like almost nothing to do with the movie itself.
And and it's not even everything. As we recall, there were leaked, deleted scenes that are not even among the bonus material on the digital release.
And that's the thing too. I think Warner Bros. Was just trying to be like, oh well, here's something. But and also I think those leaked deleted scenes weren't ever supposed to see the light of day, because the shows, especially the whole Kiersey stuff, they were trying to keep that hidden so that way they can try to recast her if need be. So they can say, oh, we never saw Iris West, so it doesn't matter if we recast her. But now those leaked scenes are out. Like, we know that obviously, I mean, we already knew because she was cast, But like now we know that she had a role in the movie to play, however big or small it might have been. She had a role, and Warner Brothers is still trying to pretend like, oh, that didn't happen. Well, if you just fucking release them as deleted scenes, it's like people have saved them to their laptops anyway. Why not just make it official? Touch up some CGI spots or like add some music or something. Do fucking something, because we know they exist. They're out there. Like Warner Brothers is just so they're idiots in terms of how they're handling the situation.
Yeah,
like,
they really are.
Like, they're not like thinking like they just want to admit their mistakes, but like all they have to do is just say like, here's Zack Snyder's footage. It's not a Zack Snyder cut, but here's his footage. And at least then it's like, okay, well at least we know it's fucking there, even though we already knew. And you might make more money than, because like right now, how many guys are gonna even buy the Blu-ray? I mean,
I don't know if I can bring myself to. My kids enjoyed it, but I just don't know if I can do it.
Exactly. Like I'm more than likely gonna get it, just because I like having just the collection of movies. Like, I try being that way with Marvel, but fucking Disney is super expensive, and they don't ever want to bring down the prices of anything. So I don't really buy their movies anymore, because I don't want to spend like $100 for 3 movies that I barely liked as it is.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like Warner Brothers, they're really missing out on an opportunity where they can make more money for something that fans have been wanting from the get-go, and they're just being fucking stingy and petty. It's just...
They just don't seem to have a handle on PR at all. Or, any kind of reality. So, and they haven't for a while now, it seems. So, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, so... I knew. I just knew this was going to end up happening this week for the podcast. It's literally been like a 3-hour rant on WB, and I'll probably be okay with that because they deserve it. After everything that they've done, it's just what they've done is just pathetic. It's just yeah. I'm done with them. So I think with that being said, that's probably going to be it from us. 3 hours of ranting later. But I want to thank you guys for joining me this week, as always. Thank you to Al and Fatma for joining us. You guys were awesome. Danielle, RTM, Katie, Rebecca. I'm glad we had so many of us here today. It was a lot of fun. I don't know what we're going to be talking about next. We covered a lot today. Unless we just rant every week, which I'm fine with. But again, like we mentioned last week, if you guys still want us to do that dramatic reading of Joss Whedon's shitty Wonder Woman script, that's still an idea. I'm still up for that because I'm actually kind of excited. But yeah, I mean, do you guys have anything you want to say before we head out here?
I guess we pretty much said everything there is, at least for the moment, because actually there is a lot to say, but it will not be kind toward certain people.
Yeah, I don't think in the last 3 months we've been all that kind to Warner Brothers anyway, so...
I'm sure the situation will develop eventually, and then we can continue to develop our particular flavors of anger.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. I know we went on for a long time today, but at this point, if you guys don't hear a 3-hour podcast of us talking, something's up. Or there must be a slow week. But yeah, again, thank you guys for listening, and thank everyone here for coming on this week. It's always fun, and it's always one day of the week I look forward to, because it's the one time a week where I can actually go off and not keep my emotions about the stuff bottled up. Because I know, on Tuesday night when the digital copy was released, there's so much I wanted to say but couldn't because my fiance already hears enough from me as it is. But yeah, so thank you guys again. So as we head out here, do you guys want to go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you online?
You can find me on Tumblr as GreyConLaw.
I'm Danielle, and I'm a Social Justice League on Tumblr.
I'm Rebecca, and I'm the Endeavor on Tumblr.
Well, you can find Katie at Story Advocate on Tumblr. I think she's I think she might have accidentally signed out or something, but that's where you can find her. But thank you guys again for coming on. I've loved talking to you guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon. And again, thank you guys for listening. You guys can find me online here at Nerdy Nick or True Man of Steel on Twitter or Tumblr. And definitely keep listening to us. Keep sharing the podcast. Let everyone know in the DCEU fan that this podcast exists. We love doing this for you guys. And again, if you want to hear the Wonder Woman dramatic reading, let us know. And just keep the conversation going in the comment section. Let us know what you guys think of what we had to say. And until next time, have a good one.